the Morrisville Town Council business session. It's March 24th and the time is 6:30. We have a couple members of the council that will not be here tonight, TJ Cawley and council member Michael Schlink, and the town attorney will be arriving shortly. For the invocation tonight, we ask to have a moment of silence. In particular, I would like to pray for the niece of Michael Schlink who passed away this week. So if you could bow your head and have a moment of silence. Thank you. If you could please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, before we adopt the agenda for tonight, we call on the town council members as part of our town council policy to make sure that we're all free of conflict of interest or appearance of conflict of interest on any items on tonight's agenda. So I ask the council if there are any items that present that conflict of interest issue.
No.
I do want to point out it's not a conflict of interest, but just for transparency purposes, my firm does represent the Wake County Public Schools, and I do some work for them as an attorney. But we're not voting on anything tonight. It's just a presentation, so there's no conflict. But I just wanted to remind everyone of that. I
appreciate you noting that. Okay, seeing no conflicts, could I please have a
motion to adopt?
Motion to adopt.
I'll make that motion to adopt the agenda.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, so the agenda has been adopted. There are 3 sets of minutes to review. The first one, I believe, is our retreat minutes, the 23rd, 25th of January. Any changes to that one?
There are no changes.
Okay. With no changes, any other comments on that set of minutes from the council?
Can I just make one quick comment, Diana? In the minutes you had, there were some paragraphs that were, or at least one paragraph that was highlighted in yellow. Was that just in our copy? That's not going to be out. I was just curious why it was highlighted in yellow. But the copy that'll go out to the public won't be highlighted at all, will it? Okay.
Okay. So if I could have a motion and second for the first set of minutes.
Move that we adopt the January 23rd to 25th minutes.
Second.
A motion and second. All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay. The next set is February 10th. And I believe we do have some changes to that. Diana, would you like to go over those changes?
You should have received a copy of these as well, but they're listed right here.
Okay, does that fit in what you were...
And so everyone, I emailed this to Diana. I just didn't, I wanted to be clear in the minutes that light rail was discussed. It was just that light rail was not included in the 9 design plans. So I just asked for a little change in the wording there.
Okay. Any other changes for those minutes? Okay, thank you for doing that. Need a motion and a second for those.
Move that we adopt the amended minutes of February 10th.
I'll second.
A motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, those minutes passed, or approved rather. The next set is February 24th. Any changes to those minutes, Diana? Okay. Seeing none, any comments from the council?
No.
Need a motion and a second?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes from February 24th.
Second.
A motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, those minutes are adopted. We have 2 presentations tonight. I'm going to read the first one up here. It's the Irish American Heritage Month proclamation, and it reads as follows. Whereas during Irish American Heritage Month, we honor the contributions of Irish Americans, the contributions that Irish Americans have made, and celebrate those among us who proudly trace their roots back to Ireland. And whereas over half a century ago, John F. Kennedy became our first Irish American president and summoned an expected citizenry to greatness. This year, we recognize our 35th president and the countless other Irish Americans whose leadership and service have steered the course of America. And whereas the census does not specifically track the number of Irish Americans here in Morrisville, but almost 12% of the total population reported Irish ancestry in the 2008 American Community Survey conducted by the U.S. Census Bureau. And whereas seldom in this world has a country so small had such a large of an impact on each other. Today, the rich culture of Ireland touches all aspects of American society, and the friendship that binds Ireland and the United States is marked by a shared past and common future. And whereas our own Morrisville Fire Rescue Department is a member of the Greater Raleigh Emerald Society, which is a 501c3 organization which celebrates the contributions the Irish have made to public safety. And whereas as communities across the country celebrate Irish American Heritage Month and St. Patrick's Day, we pay tribute to the proud lineage passed down to so many Americans from the Emerald Isle. Now, therefore, I, Mark Stolman, Mayor, on behalf of the Morrisville Town Council, hereby proclaim March 2015 as Irish American Heritage Month in the town of Morrisville, and this is adopted the 24th day of March 2015. Next up is a presentation, our good friends from Wake County Public Schools on site selection and school design. And if you could introduce yourself to the audience and ourselves, we'd appreciate it.
Yes, Mayor, Town Council, thank you. Appreciate this opportunity. I'm Joe Desiremore. I am the Assistant Superintendent for Facilities for the Wake County Public School System. And I have a presentation here that we have provided to all the municipal managers and to the Board of Education and to the Board of Commissioners. And I'd like to cover it with you today. The first part starts off with some key facts from the county. First of all, if you look at this chart, you'll notice that it took a long time for this county, but it finally got to 1 million people last year. But if you look at the projections, within the next 40 years, it will double to 2 million. So it'll only take 40 years to get to that next 1 million population. That will double the size of the school system, probably. And if you look, currently 22 babies are born each day in the county. That's equal to 1 kindergarten classroom. Look here, there's about 62 people that move into the county each day. This kind of shows you a representation of where they move into the county, the locations. This map kind of gives you an idea of preliminary subdivisions that have initiated with the county, Wake County, just showing throughout the county the pink areas. So there's a lot of growth going on, of course. This kind of is a heat map. It kind of shows you the permit density, where all the permits are being requested with the county. And then there's also often talk about the funding that comes from the county. You see here it shows the operating dollars per student and the capital dollars per student for a total of $3,340. And if you just looked at the county tax rate and what value of a home would be needed in order to just pay for one student, it would take the value of the home to be $578,000. Now switching over to some Wake County information. Basically we had, as for the 14-15 school year, 155,000 students, 171 schools. Of course, we're the largest school in North Carolina at this time. When we put the bond together, we were gaining about 3,700 new students per year. That equates to 4 elementary schools. And we were projected to have around 181,000 students by 2020. Those numbers were used in the projections for the bond. You also see here, you may not know, we're the 15th largest school system in the nation. The next 3 slides I'll kind of go back and forth between. They are show the student density now, just focusing on student density. Projections starting in 2002, going to 2012, out to 2022. The darker the area shows you where the density, where the student growth is. This is just focused on students. So based on that, the numbers you saw earlier that I mentioned, we're looking at schools. This map shows you all the schools in the system. It shows all the schools, new schools needed by 2020. The 16 schools currently in the bond that is funded right now are reflected on this map already as either a solid square, a triangle, or a circle to represent whether it's elementary, middle, or high. 10 school sites that are land banked are also reflected on here with stars. And just to kind of show on here, like right here, the star, these are land banked sites, so they take care of some of the schools that would be needed. 14 more sites are needed. Those are the circles that you see on the map. We need to acquire additional 14 sites. So by 2020, we'd be looking at around 211 schools in the county. That's over 6 schools opening per year as an average to get to that number. And just for an example, for high school, it takes 4 years from the moment you've got the land to design it and construct it before it can open its first year. So you have to look ahead. Just to point out a couple of things, you see a couple of the target circles are actually in watershed areas, and at this time we're unable to acquire land or build in those areas, so we'll have to be finding sites outside of the watershed. So what drives the design of a school? Well, basically the educational program drives the school design. Once that program is set, and it does change often on a regular basis, we translate that program into design guidelines. Basically, first of all, space standards, basically telling you what size the rooms need to be for the different kinds of programs. Educational specifications basically tell you what needs to be in the classrooms. And design guidelines is what we use to actually do the construction, what is needed material-wise for the building. We have these standards to help standardize our designs across the county, trying to keep them equal. Of course, as we build over time, the program changes, as I mentioned. So when we go back and renovate, we use these exact same standards to do the major renovations so we can bring the older schools up to the same standards. Those are all located on our website. Also, I'd also like to talk about, we have a new dashboard on our website. And if you go to our main website and you look at About Us, you pull that, there'll be a drop down. It'll have facility design and construction. You click on that, then you'll have the opportunity to click on the building program. There will be a map here. You can actually click on each one of these areas. It will bring up a little sub window that will tell you about that construction. If you click on it, you can even get more information. So there's a lot of information out there about the schools themselves, the scopes, their time frames, their schedules, and their budgets. So that's something new that we've got out there so everybody can keep up to date on what's happening in the bond. Whoops, what did I do here? I didn't mean to go to that. Let's go back to the PowerPoint.
You're just showing us what happens when you click on the link, right?
Yeah, click on the link that takes you there. Okay. So once the program is set up, we know what it's been translated into brick and mortar. We start looking for sites to build these schools. Of course, the size of the site, it's 20 acres for an elementary, 30 for a middle, 65 for a high school. The location, of course, we're looking for proximity to other schools. We don't want to be near undesirable neighbors, being maybe some kind of hazardous waste site or something like that. Opportunities for joint use, of course, we're always looking for. Site conditions play a big part in that site. How much of that site will be usable? Accessibility, whether the infrastructure exists to get to the site, and whether water and sewer is provided. Annexing and zoning, of course, we check the cost of the site, not only the acquisition of the site, but also the on and off-site site development costs that result from us building on that site, and then whether there's anything historically significant on that site. What I would like to do is kind of take you through an example here. This is the process we went through for E33 when we sited this site, looking at this property. We start, first of all, with NC State University. We work with them. They provide us data that gives us a pinpoint basically for every target school that says where we need to build that school to be in the best location to meet the proximity of students in that area and projected growth. That point would be right in the middle of this circle. What we then do is take about 1.5 mile radius, add to that from that point, and that creates the circle, which is about a 3-mile circle. And that used to be the main circle we would use to look for sites to acquire. Over time, we have found that that is not big enough anymore, and we've had to expand that circle another mile outside, so it's totally a 5-mile circle now. What we do is we identify, for this example, E33 Elementary School, 20 acres. You see the colors here, what they represent is all the 20-acre sites within the circle. And the darker the site gets, the better it is for putting a school on it. Basically, the lighter shade is just it's 20 acres, boom. Doesn't matter what's on it or anything. As it gets darker, we look at whether there's already development on there, whether there's access to water and sewer, whether there's access to roads, on and on, down to the point that the darkest circle is the best opportunity potentially for putting a school on that site. So for this particular one, when we first drew the circle, we had 86 sites that were identified. Once we worked our way through all the different parts of it, there were 3 sites that remained for consideration in the process. Now you may ask, do we ever get down to 0? Yes. On several occasions we've got down that there were no sites left. We have to go back and start reconsidering some of the sites that were there, or we also start looking at combining multiple sites together in order to form one. In this example, we had 3. These are the 3 sites that were identified as the best choices on this particular example. Now, but what you also see here is there's a green circle added on this. As we proceed through this process and we buy different sites in the process, we go back to NC State's experts and we ask them, now based on where we've actually purchased some sites, redo the circles to see if there's any effect, whether they should shift. We had purchased several sites before this. They redid the circles, and the circle actually shifted to where that green circle is located on this map. So when you start looking at the potential sites that were available, you see that maybe one that looked like it was on the outside of the ring now is more towards the center of the ring since the ring is moved. With those 3 sites, we start looking at a long list of other data to evaluate the site and determine whether it is actually the best site to purchase. You see that long list here. And we also deal closely with several different departments, the planners, North Carolina DOT, developers, on and on to get additional information based on these sites. We then take that when we approach our Board of Education and Board of Commissioners. We lay out some information about each one of those sites. What you see here is a comparison of those, hitting some key data. The subject project, Oak Kelly was the one that was chose on this one. What you will see at the very beginning, you see the site acreage, how much of it is usable on the site, the anticipated price per acre, and it would appear at this time that this is the most expensive site. But as you go through the process of looking at usable acres available and you get a net anticipated site price, it drops down and it actually becomes almost the best cost, effective cost per usable acre for the site. Then on top of that, you look at its ability to support the program, of course. You look at site development costs. In this case, we expected them to be typical. We also expected the off-site road improvement costs to be typical, while the other sites were expected to be above typical or more expensive. Okay? We then take that information, it's also here in a narrative kind of form to look at, and you get down to the bottom line where our recommendation was Oak Kelly Chapel Road. We said yes on this one, but you do notice that we say not at this time on this one, which means that we consider this one as a potential site in the future if we need to find another site in the area. Now let's talk about site usage for a second. There's questions a lot of times is how do you use your sites and why do you need such a big site? The next few slides were created in 2005 before we actually enlarged the capacity of our schools and before recent stacking, car stacking, environmental and public infrastructure increases were put in place. But it still serves as a good example of what's going on there because we still target the same amount of acreage as we did then, even though we've increased the capacity of our schools. The first 2 columns reflect what really is driven by the program of the school, what is required at that site in order to provide the program. The next 2 columns are basically regulatory and unbuildable areas. It's other acreage we end up having to purchase in order to meet the statutes that are out there, meet environmental codes and buffers. The reason we break the first one up into two areas is just to kind of point out the most common used areas for joint use, so that everybody's aware that these tend to be the areas of that school for like an elementary that are have the greatest potential being used for joint use. In this particular example for an elementary school, even though we're looking at 20 acres, this particular site was actually 17.1 acres at that time, we only needed about 48% of that acreage for the program itself. The rest of it, actually more than 50% of the site, was required for regulatory or other requirements. So that's what drives the site to be larger than the program. This is the same example for a middle school. What I would also like to point out is another common question we get is, why do you only build single-story schools? Well, we don't. We do build multi-story schools. These, in fact, are two-story schools back then when we did this site. We've had high schools go mostly 3 stories, but now we even have a 4-story. But this is, again, the same for a middle school. The middle school turned out to be about 55% of the site is needed for program. For a high school, about 57% of the site was needed for program. So what have been the growth impacts on school site selection? You'll see here there are a lot of things that have happened over time as growth has come to the county really fast. A lot more stakeholder participation, which we're glad to see. A lot more people are interested in what sites we're getting and where we're getting them. Now, the developers are more involved. Municipalities are working with us. The neighbors, you often hear the neighbors want a school nearby, but it's also funny that they don't want it in their neighborhood, but they do want it nearby. You see, of course, Ord and Itri, we use them for the data-driven. Of course, there's increased competition for the good sites. We have to go sometimes with larger sites because of all the streams and wetlands. The good flat sites are pretty much gone. So you have to go to the sites that have more elevation changes, more streams. In fact, retaining walls are becoming our friends now. We have to build more and more of them in order to get the schools on the sites. You've got, of course, the increased traffic improvements that are happening out there across the county, increased stormwater requirements. But we're also focusing on land banking. We do look at adaptive reuse as an option out there to change the use of existing buildings. So those are some of the impacts from growth. Back to the reuse, adaptive reuse. Some people say, why don't you reuse some other buildings? Well, we do. In fact, we've reused a theater, a manufacturing plant, a Coke plant, a grocery store, some of the college spaces on colleges. We've used surplus county facilities. So there's a lot of places that we have done some adaptive reuse out there. Planned developments, how about working with the developers out there? Well, right now we got River Bend Middle School is being built over in the northeast part of the county. That's working out very well. Working with that developer in that area, we've been able to save a lot of our costs on public infrastructure improvements because they're taking care of it with their development, but they set aside space in that development for a school. As I mentioned already, surplus public property, we look at that from the county or anywhere else. Redevelopment, we're quickly driving to the point that, as I said, sites are getting harder and harder to find. The greenfield sites actually are those sites that are out there. They're probably nice and plenty of green out there, but there's no road access or water or public infrastructure access to those sites. So we're getting pretty close to what we call having to start using the C word, and the C word is condemnations in order to be able to find space out there. We haven't had to go there for a new site acquisition at this point yet, but I think it's on the horizon. Of course, we've been talking about new schools a lot, but you do have the existing schools, 171 schools out there now. That's over almost 570 buildings. We do have over 1,000 temporary classrooms. That's about 26,000 seats that are in temporary classrooms, mobiles and modulars. Over 4,400 acres and 22 million square feet out there. So what does the impact of growth have on that? Well, this shows you the funding in the past few bonds. And the percentage that went towards existing schools, in Plan 2000, 54% of the funding went to existing schools. But with the increased amount of growth that's been going on, the amount of new schools we need to build, that has dropped down to only 41% of the bond has gone to renovations. And those bonds have actually, the last two bonds are bigger than the first two. So even increasing the size of the bond, we have a process in which we are a major renovation of school. We target square footage, believe it or not, that is over 40 years old since it's had a major renovation. So we're taking our time on going in there doing a major renovation. Now, yes, we still go in there and replace pieces of equipment, we paint, do carpet, something like that. But to go in there and actually do a major renovation in which you bring it up to the current programming standards, we're looking at the school being 40 years before we get there. There's over 1 million square feet right now in the system that's over 40 years. So, school design has become more complex due to the area growth. Another thing has been said, build bigger schools. Well, we've been building bigger schools. We went from a 1,600 capacity high school to a 2,200 capacity high school, and we kept it on the same acreage as the 1,600. Basically, we just increased the classrooms. We did not increase the gym or a lot of the common areas out there. So they still stayed the same, support those. Of course, more difficult site constraints. It's becoming more difficult to reuse designs. We like to reuse designs because we learn from those and we get the benefits, and so it's easier to build them the next time. We already know where the mistakes are and the changes are in there. But as the sites become harder to adapt to, it gets harder to reuse your designs. It also starts to limit your outdoor program areas. Traffic issues, more car stacking, of course, as there tends to be more people wanting to take their kids to school. So that increases the stacking at schools. Increased stakeholder interest I mentioned earlier. The crowding I mentioned, of course, like I said, there's 26,000 seats that are in temporary facilities. So how do we get all this done? Well, it takes collaboration. What we listed here is all these people are included in the process, and several are involved, several parts of the acquisition, from acquisition to design to construction. So we talked to them several times in the process. There's a lot of people that play in this. There's a lot of collaboration going on, but there always can be more. We would like more out there. It is limited basically by time and resources, both by us and for the different stakeholders out there that are involved. Well, how much time they have and resources they have to collaborate with us. But we're always looking at ways to improve it. Just recently, the county and the school staff, we've had a lot of collaboration in the past, but we recently stepped that up to another level by forming what we call a joint facilities team. And with that team, basically that purpose is, you see the makeup of the team here from both the county and from the school system. And we use this process in order to improve our communication between the two staffs and for everybody to be more involved and better informed when it comes to our cost and our design and our construction estimates. And we've seen a lot of benefit of that over the past few months since that has been implemented. Of course, basically, the strength of the school system is fundamental to the strength of the county and the municipalities. It is a county-wide system. The county is responsible for funding the construction of the schools. And of course, we're here to serve every student in every municipality. Of course, with that goal is that they graduate and that they're ready for higher education, a career, and productive citizenship.
Great.
Any questions?
Thank you very much. Any questions for Mr. Desiremore?
I do have just a couple. Back on, I think it was probably slide 16 forward there, you talked about site selection and that example, the E33. You were referring to just an elementary school in that example.
Correct.
Middle school and high school, how different are those site selection processes? Because you talked about the 5-mile radius. I assume middle school and high school is a little different then.
The same circle sizes are used for middle and high.
They are the same.
Yes, we do keep the same circle sizes.
And then on that same train of thought then, here you were looking at an elementary school in this area. Are you looking for a middle school in this vicinity? Are you looking for a high school in this vicinity?
Let's see here. We can go back to, let's see here. I don't seem to be going. Here we go.
Want to go to 12?
There.
Yeah.
All right, we have, it is kind of hard to see on this, but we do have, like right here is a star of a site we already own. It's land banked over in this part of the county. We've just recently actually purchased a lot of the sites that were already the 16. There were several of those in this area of the county, the western side of the county. So the next circles you see here are the closest ones surrounding it this time. Now, I will say we're constantly updating our student density information. And in fact, we expect some new numbers here in the next month or so. So we will be redoing the target circles again based on the latest information that we've gotten from all the municipal planners. So that will be updating, and that could result in either additional circles or shifting some of these circles to different locations.
Okay. And just two more quick questions. You talked about the priority and the site selection. If you have a building that you can reuse, how does that fall into that priority of site? Does that, if you find a building that you can reuse, does that somehow give, is there a priority? Does that move to the top?
No, it doesn't move to the top, but it is considered in the whole process. Of course, we're looking for the best site first, which would be no facilities there. But if you don't have any sites, when you get down to it and you have 0 left, then you go back and you start reconsidering some of those, like the ones that have buildings on them that we might be able to redevelop and change.
Because I can think of some examples. That's why I asked that question. And then last question, the next bond, do you have any information you can share with us about when the next bond is due for funding for schools?
This bond was set up to run through 2017, which means that in order to stay continuous without a break in building schools, we would need to fund the next bond in 2016.
Thank
Okay,
you.
good. Thank you. Chris?
Just one question. Liz did a great job on the questions that I thought of as well. Related to this diagram on the new school projections to 2020, for the circles, those are target areas, but when would those schools, if land was purchased and identified, be put into motion? Would that be by 2020 or would that be later? Because it takes 4 years for schools.
Right. The intent would be is that we need these on site in time, depending on whether it's an elementary, middle, or high. If it's elementary, just a little over 2 years prior to its need. Middle school, about 3 years prior to its need, and the high school, about 4 years prior to its need.
Okay, so if we purchase this land tomorrow, that may possibly, depending on funding, be available by 2020.
Correct.
Okay, great, thank you.
And you remember, when we open a school, we do not open it fully assigned, with students assigned. It opens with just one, first couple of years of grade levels filled.
Okay.
Thank you.
Steve, you have any?
Mayor Pro Tem asked most of the questions, but just a couple of comments. This presentation has been very helpful, and I think that my concern that I think many citizens that I speak to in Morrisville is that the growth is occurring so fast, and we're not building to the capacity, of what that demand is. I mean, I know this is great, and it does show that we have a plan. But my concern is you use in one of your slides, it says data-driven decisions have become the norm. And even our DOT, Department of Transportation, they're looking at data-driven decisions to fund road improvements or road maintenance. And so there's been a lot of changes with criteria that's selected to, give money to places equitably, right? And so I think it's really hard for a lot of citizens in Morrisville to, 10 years ago our town was just a few thousand people. Today we're going to be projecting 25,000, and we still only have 2 elementary schools and no high schools. Now, I understand, when we select these schools, are we looking at it, based on the region, in terms of where we're going to put these schools? That's question number one.
And that goes back to the circle. When ORID and ITRI, when they go out and do the data, they collect all the data from the municipalities, they get it, and based on where the current students are and the capacity that's available and the projected growth, there is a dot that points to the best location in this area to build a school, And then that's what drives where the location is. And then we put the circle around it because we're not able to find a school right on that dot. So that's driven by current capacity, current where the students are now, and projected growth.
And I'm not using it as a criticism. I'm just
Oh, I
saying
understand.
it's a frustration for all of us, not only elected officials, but citizens who, come to me, their schools are overcrowded.
Yes.
They want to be reassigned. They don't have a school near, where they live. But also, like the last bond that we passed was, I think most of that was to about 40 schools, correct? The last bond that was
No,
passed?
the last bond that was passed was only 16 schools.
16 schools.
Now, we
Okay.
identified
So,
40 schools that were needed to
Identified
be
40.
built.
That's where the 40 number came from.
Right, there was about a $2.2 billion need identified, okay? But when you sat down and looked at the funding that was available based on, the current market conditions, being able to maintain the debt ratios that they need to maintain, that was narrowed down to just under $1 billion in order to fund, and it was targeted to match growth only, not to catch up, but to try to build as many seats as we're expected to grow by.
Well, I just think that what we need to do is continue to, Councilmember Schlink and I attended the joint meeting with the Wake County Commissioners and the school board. So the good news is I think they're trying to have a dialogue of what we can do to perhaps get more aggressive with more money that we can provide. I don't know if there's been tax increases affiliated with these bonds, but if there's, correlating revenue, like when we passed a bond in Morrisville, the last bond, we equivalent a 2-cent tax increase. And then that the money's going into a kitty and building up so we can invest, like for the 54 bypass and things like that. So maybe there's some tweaks in the system that we can do, and I would just encourage the citizens of Morrisville and Wake County to speak up and email your commissioners and your school board members, because our hands are tied right now, but I really want to see us try to address this issue, because I think we're just not keeping up with the growth. And it's nobody's fault. It's just a fact. Thank you.
Go ahead, Liz.
Actually, I have one more question. Back on slide 21, where you talked about the 3 sites that you did look at here in Western Wake County and the Morrisville area, the Little Drive location, you just said not at this time,
Right.
but it's still a valuable, or it could be a valuable site for you. So is there a way to purchase the site so it's in your land banking inventory for the future, or is there no funding for that? Can you just
At this
comment?
time, there is not a target circle to indicate the need for it, okay? So our land acquisition is based on the target circles, and they are actually prioritized based on crowding in those areas. So unfortunately, there's a lot of times we see some sites that are available there, and we just hope that they might be available later. We are land banking, though. I mean, that is important. That is a part of the funding, so we can try to get ahead. But that land banking is based on a priority, based on the latest information we had at that time.
So you have no intention of land banking Little Drive right now?
Not at this time.
I would like to volunteer to be on the committee that draws circles. Because I guarantee there's one in Morrisville that should be there. And unfortunately, we see it every day here. And we see it as growth comes in and developers are trying to put up buildings, and the fight they have with us about the overcrowding in schools. So I hope that the person that is in charge of the circles remembers Morrisville next time around.
Well, we're definitely using the information provided by Morrisville in order to draw those circles.
Well, we've got a nice big new census coming up here over the summer, so hopefully you'll see that data come out. We're doing a special census. It's kind of off cycle. Liz asked my question about the Little Drive. I was hoping that you'd say that's a good land banking opportunity. Last thing, if you could, is it possible to get this slide deck to our town clerk to have it published on our website for a while, or is this?
Sure.
Is that available? So if you guys could do that, maybe put on the front page for a while so interested public can get to it. So, okay, well, very good discussion. Sir, I appreciate you being here. Any further questions?
No.
Okay. Mr. Desiremore, thank you so much for being here, and give our best to Wake County Public School folks, and thank them for everything they do. It's a very, very difficult job, and I often say I'm glad they volunteered for that job, because it's tough. It's really tough.
Thank you.
But thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Joe.
Okay, next up is for the good of the order. I'm going to turn it over to the town manager to see if they have any staff updates.
Thank you, Mayor. Just three quick ones. I'm going to pass it to Stephanie first for a quick update, then to Rich, and then to Ben.
All right, Stephanie.
Good evening. I have an update on our National Citizen Survey. The paper portion of the survey has been completed, so the National Research Center will be calculating those totals and we'll have that report to us at the end of next month. We did indicate that we will have a website link of that survey available to those who are not selected to participate. That link has been posted to the homepage of our website, so we'll be pushing that out through our typical outreach efforts and give people an opportunity to give their feedback. It will be calculated separately from the paper survey response, but we will get those results as well. That link will be available for 4 weeks.
Good, thank you. Rich?
Just a quick update. The work associated with the MSD at Huntington Park started yesterday. The contractor will be performing asphalt paving work for the next 4 weeks, followed by a couple weeks of concrete work. So they hope to have everything done by the middle of May. Everything's been going great. Residents have been great to work with. We actually had a few people thanking us at 7:30 in the morning while large trucks were coming in. So we'll consider that a success.
Were they thanking you, or?
They were very happy to see that the road.
Very happy.
So it was very good to see. So hopefully, weather permitting, it will be done by the middle of May. Excuse me.
Perfect. Thank you. Thank you. And
let's see, another update on outreach for our April 18th event. Stephanie and I and Brad West have sat down and we've got a little outreach plan. You may have already seen that Stephanie's already been posting on social media about the Battle of Bentonville that occurred this past weekend. She's got a whole program of different things that she's going to be doing. Also, the March-April issue of Carey Magazine is out with an article on the skirmish. Look for that. And I will go ahead and send you a scanned copy tonight so that you have a copy of that, but you may be hearing from constituents about that. A very nice article on what happened here and also on the activities that we have on April 18th.
perfect. Looking forward to that. Thank you. Anything else? Okay, so back up to the council here. Go down the row here, starting with Steve. If you want to, any comments?
Just two.
Two? Okay.
First of all, I want to thank the staff and the mayor and all of my colleagues for attending the town hall day. I thought it was very well organized, and I especially want to thank Representative Dwayne Hall for spending time with us, dedicated time, and Speaker Pro Tem Stam, and then Representative Adcock and Stein and the others that we met with. I am getting concerned every day. We're getting a lot of emails and news articles about the General Assembly and taking away revenue sources. So I think it's really important that we use this town hall day as a foundation and continue to develop a proactive legislative strategy if that means us going out there more and spending time. And then just the last thing is I'm glad that Sergeant Rue is getting better. And, just sorry that he had to go through that ordeal with shooting, and hope for a speedy recovery.
Very good. Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem Johnson?
Well, I'll echo what Councilmember Rouse said about Town Hall Day for sure, and I'll add one other thing to that topic. Special thanks to Steve. I can't believe I just called you Steve. Tim Goss. I don't know. Yeah. Special thanks to Tim Goss for all his help on the League's Town Hall Day. You did a lot of work, Tim, and it's greatly appreciated. You kept us all organized that day, and we appreciate everything you did with contacting our state representatives ahead of time, letting them know that council was coming, and I think that's why we got to meet with and had the opportunity to speak with so many of them. So I appreciate all your efforts.
Thank you. Diana was a big help in that regard also.
Thank you, Diana, too. Thank you both very much.
All right, great. Thank you. Mr. Gardner?
I have no comments.
All right. Yes, Vicki Scroggins-Rousey.
Yes. I am looking forward to our event, the Morrisville commemoration. Personally, I was reminded during our last presentation how much we've grown as a county and the 150th anniversary, there must have been just several thousand folks in this area, and we have grown tremendously. So that's really an aha moment for me. But on a personal note, my great-great-great-grandfather was born in Wake County in 1793, and there was approximately only 13,000 people at that time. So I was like, wow, that's pretty neat. Now we're 1 million strong. So it's
his fault, huh?
It's his fault. Well,
well, not all of them.
not all of them. Yes, but anyways, I think we should just be very proud of where we are today and reflect. And I'm looking forward to that event and the Carey Magazine article. That'll be a really good read. So thank you for working on that. Appreciate that from everyone.
Again, I'd just like to echo the thanks to the staff, particularly Tim Goss and Martha Willock and Diana for their help with the town hall day. It was an interesting day, to say the least. We had some really good visits, some very sobering visits, some more enjoyable than others. So I got a thank you card, a note out to all the people we visited on our behalf. And I think everything we do is incremental in building those relationships and do nothing but help us in the future. So thanks to the council for setting aside a day to do that. So I think it's very beneficial. We did get both the Senate and the House local bills have been filed, which is good news. So we'll see how those progress. And I know that the Carey News is coming out with an article in regards to those and what we're trying to accomplish there. So you'll see more on that. Last bit of public information. Benjamin Howell, when is the closure on Church Street? The May 18th. So I think we have a date now, May 18th. He's working with Stephanie Smith to, I think it's Stephanie, or the planning folks, to put together a flyer. I've seen a draft of it. It'll be approximately a half page that we can leave out. We're going to have probably over 1,500 homes to visit. And if we split that up among 7 council members, I think we can hit them all in a weekend or two. So something to look forward to in the next couple of weeks. So we'll have that ready probably within a week to get us out there on the road and start publicizing that closure. So, all right. Anything else before we continue? Okay, very good. Next up is a public address. Stephanie, if you could pull up anyone that has signed up for that. For public address? Okay. If you could, that's okay. Diane, if you could help her with that real quick. Okay.
Oh, there we go. There they are. There we go. It's updated.
Okay. Is that that's a public hearing now, right?
Yeah, the public address and 2 public hearings. I haven't been here.
Oh, down there. I'm sorry. So just refresh. Okay.
I haven't been here in a while, so I have a lot to say.
That's okay. Well, you have 3 minutes, so talk fast.
Thank you, Mayor Stolman and members of the council. I'm here because I want to talk about the revenue constraints that are being imposed on the town by the General Assembly. We're all familiar with the $800,000 hole that has been punched in our budget because of the privilege license repeal. And yesterday, a bill was filed in the Senate to reallocate the way sales tax is distributed within the state and within counties that will negatively impact Morrisville. And I'm here because I firmly believe that actions speak louder than words. I commend the town council's efforts to work with the league and to be very nonpartisan and very direct and very collaborative about this. The fact of the matter remains that through its actions, the North Carolina General Assembly has made it clear it is ignoring the league and it is ignoring the needs of the municipalities in its actions. With this latest sales tax bill, the comment that was made by the senator was that municipalities can just tighten their belts. There is no more belt tightening. We are looking at either raising taxes or cutting services or possibly doing both, which is not going to make anyone happy. So what I'd like to ask you to do is to continue your efforts with the league, but to mobilize the best resource you have, which is the 18,000 citizens in this town, most of whom are unaware of what is happening. And all I'm asking you to do is, I don't want to politicize this, but to inform them. Most citizens, if they knew you were having to make decisions about an $800,000 hole in the budget, would care. Most, if they knew what was happening with the sales tax or the sales tax bill, would care and would want to do something about it. Most people don't have the time to keep up with it. I'm asking you to find ways through the Morrisville connection, through even a letter to the citizens stating the facts. This is what has happened through this bill. This is the impact on the town. And we encourage you as citizens, maybe even organize a town hall where you get our General Assembly folks together. I'm out of time. Thank you.
Actually, you have another minute if you'd like.
Oh, okay. Where you get people together, again, to inform them. And I have to believe that the citizens of Morrisville who like the services and who want more, who are constant, I never hear anybody say the town does too much, the town spends too much. It's we want more, more, and more. And when you punch a hole in a revenue budget, the town can't do more. Citizens are going to care. Please mobilize the best. I'm not asking for pitchforks and torches yet, but I really do think that we can make our voices heard if you will just lead in getting fair information out. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you. Were there any other members of the audience that wanted to speak through public address? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on to the public hearings. We have 5 of them. The very last one is a special use permit, so that will be a little bit different than the first 4. The first one is item 2015-010. That's the Wake Tech conditional rezoning. Rodney, do you have an update before the hearing starts?
Do a really quick update. Since the last town council meeting, we have staff, representatives from Wake Tech as well as DOT have all met and discussed the paving of Watkins Road. We have generally come to an agreement on the condition. I fully expect the final condition to be included in the April 14th briefing sheet. We're just waiting on one little piece of confirmation from DOT. But the gist of the condition is allowing the ribbon pavement, tying it to Phase 2, and have the installation of that ribbon pavement in place prior to the CO for the first building of the Phase 2 of the development. And again, I fully expect to have that completed condition, agreed upon condition as part of the briefing sheet, first meeting of next month.
Okay. I think we need a motion to open the public hearing then, Frank, is that right? So.
I move that we open the public hearing for item 2015-010.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay. Public hearing is open now for that item. We have Cindy Schwarzkopf. You could just state your name for the record, please.
Sure. Cindy Schwarzkopf with Stewart on behalf of Wake Tech Community College this evening. Good evening, Mayor and Council. I am here on behalf of Wake Tech this evening and the Wake Tech Foundation, the owners of the nearly 94 acres of land that is slated for the RTP campus in Morrisville. I was before the council in 2008 when we initially put the land together and did the rezone to conditional use at that time. At the beginning of the process, 6 to 7 years ago, the front portion of that property was going to be slated for commercial development. Since that time, Wake Tech has decided that the entire campus assemblage will be used for academic uses. So one of the reasons that we're here this evening is to strike any of the conditions related to commercial development. We want to change the wording of the conditions to reflect the new UDO, and just to make sure that all of the conditions are consistent across the entirety of the campus. As Rodney mentioned, we have met with Wake Tech, NCDOT and members of the town last week to discuss the condition related to the ribbon paving, and Wake Tech has agreed to that. And we've understood that NCDOT has agreed as well. And as Rodney said, we're just waiting for the documentation, and Wake Tech will agree to that condition fully. So I'm happy to answer any questions that you all might have. And I also have a representative from Wake Tech and our TIA consultant here this evening.
Very good. Any questions for Ms. Schwarzkopf? No? Okay.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Yeah. Any other speakers for that? Okay.
Move that we close the public hearing.
I'll second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that public hearing's been closed. Next one up is 2015-002, the Unified Development Ordinance Amendment. Applicant requested changes in our clarifications. I believe last time we were looking at this around 10 o'clock at night, and there were about 40 items. And so you were nice enough to ask us if there were any in particular we wanted to talk about today. So I'm going to turn it over to you for a briefing before we go to the public hearing.
Yes, this is an item that Courtney put together. Again, it's an omnibus text amendment for the UDO that includes requests that we've received both from internal clients and external clients, and also it has some items that are required to be changed as a result of state legislation that's been passed. And as Mayor Stolman mentioned, we sort of sent out a highlights list. There's a lot of content here. A lot of it is pretty boilerplate and pretty minor. A few highlights, as Courtney had mentioned. One is we are required to allow hydraulic fracturing under state legislation, so that is now a permitted use. We have established some more standards for earth extraction uses to require buffering and distancing of activities from residential areas and other sensitive uses. We have a combination of both allowing hydraulic fracturing and some other mitigating standards. There's sort of a variety of stuff. I would, some clarifying on performance guarantees. We have the cluster box units that the post office is using. Temporary family health care structures are now required to be allowed in residential districts, but under very specific parameters. It's a result of state legislation, so we've got a framework now for that. And you saw the list that I sent out. Now, Mayor Stolman, you had mentioned a particular item. It sounded like you wanted to talk about regarding ground signs for shopping center development. If you'd like, I can go through what the standard is that we currently have and sort of what's proposed for that, and then open it up for discussion.
That could very well answer my question, so thank you.
Let's see. So let me see if I can go down here.
This is only 740 pages long.
Let's see. I'm gonna take a guess here. Let's see what we got. All right. Yeah, we're going actually to section 5.14.82 here for the sign. 5.16.4. Excuse me.
Hope everyone's reading this. Almost.
Getting close. Okay. So one of the things, one of the areas of the UDO where the town standards evolved significantly was in the area of signage. We added some new kinds of signs. For example, light pole banner signs, sandwich board signs. We also had some revisions to other sign standards. But this particular item relates to ground signs, and in particular for shopping centers, clarifying the language. And so we've had a standard where we've allowed one sign. So if you have a shopping center abutting several roads, we've allowed one shopping center sign that lists the different tenants along each road. So the question came up, well, what if we want to do a sign at the corner? And so the current proposal here is, yes, you can do a sign at the corner. You just have to take one of those signs that's along your side, one of your sides, and slide it to the corner. But you can do that. So that's the current proposal. And with that, I turn it back to you, Mr. Mayor, for council discussion.
So the clarification or the change is just the ability to, it's no more signs. It's just taking an existing sign and sliding it to one side of the property to the next.
Yes, if you want to move it up to the corner, if you feel that as a shopping center owner that helps you in communicating what businesses are located in your center.
Okay, all right.
So that's that item. I don't know if folks if there were any other ones that folks wanted to delve into more specifically.
Is there anything else that you saw on that list that they gave us? So, like you said, I think a lot of it was to meet current rules that are out there and clarification on things. So we appreciate all the work in putting that together. Do you?
And really, thanks to Courtney for.
Yeah, and extend our thanks to her. Do you see the next, another wave of these changes? I know with it so fresh that it's going to change, and as development is picking up here, we're going to see more and more questions about this. So I assume you guys are just continually working on this, and that maybe before the end of the year we'll see another set of changes.
Yeah, we are. So first of all, it is pretty common when you go through a wholesale code update like we've done to still have stuff that needs tweaking in the months, year or two after the adoption. We do have another set of standards that we're working on. Some of these are topics still that were lower priority topics from the original discussions during the UDO, and we have Chad Meadows, the gentleman who helped us with the tree protection standards, working with Courtney to put together this sort of next package of updates. It will probably be 4 or 5 months before that comes forward. There is one other thing I wanted to mention. At one point in this package, we did get a request from someone who wanted to allow a neighborhood place of worship in the community activity center. Mm-hmm. And since the time of that original request, that party no longer needs that change. And so right now, this package reflects that change, but now it's no longer needed. And I was talking with Courtney about just the policy implications. I think we could go either way. I think one consideration is, often places of worship are tax exempt. Community activity centers are meant to be a place primarily for business activity. That's probably the only consideration, but it's probably not a big deal either way, whether that's still in there or not. But we don't have a specific client who is looking for that change anymore. So.
And I would assume if that happens in the future, if someone does come forward with the same idea, that it could be rethought of.
Absolutely, we could bring forward a change at that time.
Okay, so are you suggesting that that's taken out then?
I think that would be fine. We don't have anyone who would be missing that change if it were removed.
Okay, thank you very much. So let's go ahead. No questions for Ben. We'll get the public hearing opened. Chris, you're doing a great job with this. You want to continue?
Well, if that's all right with the other council members.
Steve, would you like to open this public hearing? You can open the next one. Go ahead.
I move that we open the public hearing for item 2015-002.
Second.
Motion and second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Let me get my bearings here. We're looking at 002. Nobody signed up. So I'd like to have a motion to close the public hearing.
I'll make a motion to close that public hearing.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that public hearing is closed. Now we will hear from Ben again on 2015-021. This is a voluntary annexation at 3045 and 3050 Carrington Mill Boulevard. These are AKA the Perimeter Park Apartments.
So usually a pinch hitter has to sit down after they've pinch hit, but apparently
not in this league.
I have multiple at-bats. Again, Courtney is out, and that's why I'm covering these items. There are no updates on this particular item.
Okay, any questions for Ben on that?
1 second. I don't think I had any.
No. Steve, would you like to get the public hearing going?
Oh, yeah.
Make a motion to open.
I move that we open the public hearing for item 2015-021.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a couple seconds there. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. 21, we have Stephanie Embry will join us again. Maybe we'll get you on the clock this time.
All right.
Okay.
I'll speak even more quickly this time.
There you go. Okay.
Thank you, Mayor Stallman and members
Thank
of the
you.
council. I just very quickly want to say I'm fine with the annexation so long as we immediately start working on a local bill to make this entire property Wake County. The idea of putting an apartment complex on two sides of a county line is absurd, and I say that as someone who lived in an apartment complex for the first many, many years I was in Morrisville. I'll go into more detail in the next public hearing about specifically why I think this master plan is a bad idea. But again, no objections to the annexation. I understand it's too late to start a local bill to move this all into Wake County, but please start working on it at the next available time. It makes sense for the town, it makes sense for the property owner, and it really makes sense for the 250 people who will become residents of Morrisville and are looking for you, the town council, now to think of not just what's going to happen when this property is built, but 10 and 20 years from now. Apartment complexes change hands all the time. I'm sure Davis Properties is doing the right thing when they're going to build this property and to lease it, but you have no idea how many owners or leasing companies will be running this place. If we don't get it all in Wake County, we're asking for a mess. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else to speak on that item? Seeing none, need a motion to close the public hearing?
So moved.
I'll second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that public hearing is now closed, and that will be voted on at the end of April. Next up, with that same subject, 2015-012, the Perimeter Park Apartments Conceptual Master Plan. Back to Ben.
Okay, Courtney had, at your last meeting, you had some questions. Courtney has prepared some answers. You may have seen them in the briefing materials. She's got a couple of updates. One of them was how much money we've collected for signals. To date, we've collected $25,000 for a future signal on Airport Boulevard from other sources. This money is not restricted to a particular intersection. And we have had preliminary discussions with DOT about using it on a spot safety project to install a signal in this corridor. We do now have elevations that are attachment 7 to this briefing item, so you can take a look at those. Courtney also attached the presentation that she gave last time. We have no greenway interior to the project, although there is a 10-foot wide multi-use path along Slater Road that's required. And the development, of course, would have to meet all adopted ordinance regulations in place at the time the site plan is submitted. Of course, this being the conceptual master plan. So with that, turn it back to you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, any questions for Ben?
I just have one. Because this is a conceptual master plan, is there any attributes of the buildings that we can ask them about? Because it's not design specific, like not having a unit cross into two counties, but having each unit entirely in one or the other?
So, the conceptual master plans are being reviewed against these 7 standards. And so that's sort of the set of parameters that are the focus of the review. So if you feel like your questions relate to one of the 7 standards, that would seem to be, an appropriate question. You can also ask. They may or may not have an answer on any particular question.
Okay, that's helpful. Thank you.
I guess, are you asking, is there going to be another opportunity
Yes.
at a later date to say, this looks great except for having an apartment in 2 different counties?
Right. It's related to the 2-county issue.
I mean, we know this conceptual thing is not binding. They don't necessarily have to build to what they're showing us right now.
Right. Or they have to get an amendment to the master plan if they deviate significantly from it. Right. But yeah, you're right. There's a whole nother level of detail that comes into play with the site plan. So this is pretty high level. And we don't have anything in our ordinance right now that really relates specifically to the cross-county issue.
As it is unusual.
Yes, yeah.
Point of clarification, is your question, Councilmember Squire Johnson, whether the council will be reviewing the plan again as opposed to staff review of the plan in more detail?
It's related to having council input on the plan again, yes.
And so with an apartment complex, once you're a multifamily project, once you're more than 50 units or more, then that's a major site plan that would come back to you for review. Again, though, we'll be, those projects are reviewed and approved based on the ordinance requirements. And that's more of a ministerial process, I would say, than this, which is legislative, but is sort of guided by these 7 standards that are the basis of the review. So if this is a concern, you can certainly ask the applicant about it and make it a point of discussion.
It's a unique point of clarification and concern because it does straddle the 2 counties. I think it's worth considering and thinking about the long-term impact on the residents that live there. So just as a point of clarification.
Oh, yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, Benjamin reminds me that actually one of the elements of the conceptual master plan is that every site plan that comes in is then staff review. So they won't be coming back. It wouldn't have done any good, I don't think, because already you're supposed to stick to the ordinance requirements on a site plan. But, yeah, so this would be the appropriate venue to discuss this. However, it's probably not something that's specifically identified in these 7 standards that are the typical framework, but if you have other questions, this is an opportunity.
I understand. Again, it is atypical of, this kind of situation.
Yeah, I think that we broached this some last time too, but I think that I understand there are some limitations there on the site with the placement of the unit or units. And I know this is just a conceptual master plan, but the goal is to get input, from at least from me at this point. And I tend to agree with Vicki that in a perfect world, each actual building itself would not be split by the county line. I imagine that's going to be difficult to achieve. But I would hope at a minimum that there would not be a residential unit itself that would be split, so that Mark and I could be in the same building, we're neighbors, but perhaps if it had to be split, as I mentioned last time, the breezeway or the common walkway or common area would sit on the property line. I would live entirely in one county and Mark would live entirely in another. Of course, if he did that, he wouldn't be mayor at that point. But
well, I might be in the Morrisville side.
Okay. Sure. So anyway, I think that's, I'm not exactly sure how that would fit in to our ordinance, but it's certainly a concern that I think I feel obligated to point out.
And Liz, did you want to say something?
No, just to follow up on it, clearly this is now the second time we've talked about this being a concern and an issue for council. So I think we need to figure out how we address it now, and how the applicant is going to address it to help us feel more comfortable. I think that's pretty important. I think they've probably gotten that message by now. So if they haven't, they sure should tonight. So somehow it needs to be addressed. And I guess we have different ideas on how to do that, quite frankly. So.
And I would just echo, I totally agree with my colleagues that I think if this is the time to put our comments forward, and if we lose this ability because it goes to staff next, I'll say right now that I think it's important that it is clearly delineated so these either buildings and or apartments are clearly in one or the other counties. Because I don't think we're going to get a local bill passed, to be perfectly honest with you, about changing county lines. I think the idea is correct. I think it will cause headaches for forever if it's not addressed right now. So I think you're getting the message from us that we want to. I guess I'd like to see by the next meeting what are our options to address that. Okay. With that, let's open up the public hearing then. Vicki, do you want to open this one up?
I'd like to open the public hearing for item 2015-012.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Public hearing is now open. This is 12. We have 4 speakers here. We'll start with Michael Birch.
I need to make sure everybody is sworn in.
This is not the special. We're not, next one. That's okay. Would you like to be sworn in anyway? Or just sworn at?
But I am not Michael Birch, so I will have to correct that.
Okay, good. You swear you're Michael Birch? Okay, all right.
If you don't mind, I'm Bob Zelmont. I'm just kidding.
Oh, I'm sorry. There you go. So much for that. Yeah. Okay, Bob, thank you for coming here tonight. We have 3 minutes on the clock for you.
Thanks a lot. Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the town board. I'm Bob Zelmont with John R. McAdams Company. I'm director of our planning department. And I'm here tonight representing Davis Development in their efforts to construct this high-quality apartment complex here in the Perimeter Park project, which you're all very familiar with. It's a 30-acre piece of property. It's strategically located within one of the largest deployment centers in the area. And it's within walking distance of Wake Tech's new campus, which having additional housing options that close to campus is a good thing. It allows people to walk and bike to campus and take some vehicle trips off the roads. High density at this location seems to be not only compatible but also complementary to the mix of uses in the area with the office and the school. It was for this reason that back in 2011, Duke decided to go ahead and rezone the property to high density residential. As Ben mentioned, or Courtney previously, the high-density residential would allow up to 17 units per acre. We're at about 13 units per acre, give or take 275 units. And as you can see, and we've discussed, the site is very odd-shaped. It's very long and skinny. It's got a number of constraints, such as utility easements. There's a Durham pump station. There's stream buffers. There's wetlands. There's a 100-year floodplain. There's 20 to 30 feet of slope from north to south. And so it sets up well for a split-level set of buildings that sit on the hill and then step down, which is why you're seeing it designed that way, so that there's 3 stories on the top side, stepping down into the creek buffer area. It allows people to have all the units looking out onto this open space area. Now, we're not impacting any of the wetlands or buffers or anything. Everything's up and out of that. As I mentioned, 3- and 4-story buildings with a rec center, clubhouse, pool, car wash facility, and then it'll have access, as shown, both to Carrington Mill and Slater. We talked about the traffic briefly. There are a number of commitments that came out of the traffic study: dedication of right-of-way and widening on Slater, turn lanes at the site drives, extension of a turn lane at the intersection of Carrington Mill and Slater, and then a contribution of roughly $10,000 towards the cost of a signal at Slater and Airport. In closing, just wanted to mention the site is already zoned for this. It was zoned back in 2011, so the proposed use is allowed under the existing zoning. We're simply here to demonstrate that we comply with the 7 findings, and I think based on the staff report, we believe we do. And so I appreciate your time. That's all I have to say, and I'm just going to introduce Mr. Birch. He's going to stand up.
Okay, thank you very much. Next up is Michael Birch.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Michael Birch with Morningstar Law Group here on behalf of the applicant, Davis Development. Again, spoke to you last time and want to touch on again the county line issue. I want to reiterate with regard to fire, police, EMS, this property will be fully annexed into the town of Morrisville, and those services are provided by the town, either by the town itself or through agreements with Wake and Durham. So again, regardless of where you are on that piece of property, those items don't change. Property taxes, those are assessed by the counties respectively as to the land and building improvements that are within those respective counties. Morrisville, because we would be fully annexed, will receive, the full tax base allocated to the town because all the property will be in the town. The other 2 items, voting and school assignment, again, those the base answers are found in the general statutes, and the rules are in place that govern those. So importantly for the council to know, there are answers. There will be an identifiable answer on the front end as to which county that particular unit is in, and for voting and school purposes, which voting district that's in and what county for school assignment purposes that particular unit will be in. And importantly, as we talked about last time, this is more of something that's incumbent on the owner, manager of the apartment complex, whether it's Davis Development or somebody else. It is a disclosure and notice standard for them on the front end for each tenant that comes in the door, whether it's when they open their doors for the first time or 10, 15, 20 years down the road. That's a notice and disclosure standard that will be taken care of by the owner or manager. With regard to the conceptual master plan and its compliance with the UDO, it was mentioned that conceptual master plan is governed, the decision is governed by 7 approval standards. I'll just note those for you briefly. It's demonstrating compliance, or the fact that it doesn't preclude compliance with the UDO's use, intensity, and dimensional standards, the access and circulation standards, infrastructure standards, stormwater standards, open space, natural resource standards, or the design standards, and that it's compatible with existing development. And again, given the office and multifamily in this area, including Carrington Park, which was developed by Davis Development, this proposal is compatible with the surrounding development. And more importantly, the county line issue as to where the county line falls within a particular unit, within a particular building, where a particular resident will vote or go to school, doesn't fall within those 7 site plan standards. So we hear that the county line location is an issue and how it functions with the buildings and units, and that's something Davis will continue to address with the counties going forward. So, thank you.
Thank you. Next up, we have 2 of the speakers, Heath Hawkins and Stephanie Embry. Either of them ready? Mr. Hawkins?
Davis Development. I'm just simply here to answer any questions.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Next up, Stephanie Embry.
I promise this is the last time for this evening.
Okay.
Mayor, council members, thank you again. I would like to ask you to approve this item with some conditions. 2 things. There was a reference that there were not going to be any internal greenways. I do think with apartment complexes, the more walking you have, the better it is, especially since they're trying to connect it. That may all come out in the site plan, but anything you can do in the language to encourage greenway and walking within the community and connecting it to other communities is important. I also understand the DOT, in all its wisdom, decided that Slater Road and Sorrel Grove Church Road Copley Parkway intersection doesn't need a 4-way stop, which tells me no one from NCDOT has ever driven that road. I used to work right by there. It needs a 4-way stop. I appreciate we can't get NCDOT to always do the right thing, but anything the town can do to continue working towards a 4-way stop. Again, that's not Davis Properties' responsibility. That's NCDOT. But I do think it should be noted, because if you had 250 cars coming out of the back way, and people are going to be coming out the back way sometimes, that is a bad intersection. I also just want to strongly agree with Marcus Kinraid and everything he said about buildings splitting on the Wake-Durham County line. There may not be anything legally we can do. Everybody's talked about county services. The one service people have not talked about is Department of Child and Family Services. In the 20-year life of apartment buildings, you're going to have Department of Child and Family Services show up at least once. And we are setting ourselves up for a situation where the Morrisville police get called to an apartment and possibly even in the middle of the night have to track down and figure out which county the apartment is in so they know who to call to take care of the kids. Do we really want to put our police in that agreement? I much prefer to see buildings on one side of the line. I don't think breaking causeways is a good idea. I really would prefer to see buildings. And if there's any way to get it all in Wake County, all my concerns go away, one county or the other. But there are just things that will go wrong, and we will be setting ourselves up 10 to 20 years down the road with a lot of headaches because apartments, especially in this area, are transit. Most of you probably aren't aware that we had an apartment complex that was taken over by Housing and Urban Development a few years ago. I was living it at the time. Property owner went bankrupt and HUD had to step in to take it over and then sold it. And in the time, there were 3 different leasing companies. Do you think in a situation like that everything about where schools and voting and DCSF is supposed to come from is necessarily going to get communicated to all the residents moving in and out? Please, anything you can do to make this buildings on one side or the other, do it. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other speakers or questions for the developer? Okay. All right, need a motion to close the public hearing?
So moved.
Second.
Motion and second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, motion, public hearing is closed. Let's see. It's almost 8 o'clock. Would council like to take a quick 5-10 minute break and then we'll get into the special use permit hearing? Okay, let's do that. Let's meet back here at 5 after 8 o'clock. Thank you. I'm going to turn it over to the town attorney for a minute for his preamble about the special use permit process.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a quick reminder that this is continuation of the quasi-judicial process that we started last meeting, and so the evidence presented to you would be under sworn testimony, and then the decision that you will make, which is scheduled now for the end of April, would be based on the evidence that you receive here in the hearing room. And at this point, my recollection is the information that's been presented in the record so far is in the brown envelopes where you had the briefing sheet and the site plan, and then Ms. Tanner's presentation, her PowerPoint, I believe, was also part of the record. So at this point, those are the three items in the record, as well as Courtney's testimony, and tonight, my understanding is the applicant will present to you.
Okay. And before we get started, I was reminded during the break by the town clerk that there was an item that she didn't have a record of us closing the public hearing on, which is 2015-012. We went through so many opens and closing, I wasn't sure myself. So if we could go ahead and double up on that.
I move that we close the public hearing in 2015-012.
Second.
Motion and second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, that's closed. Now turn it back to Ben. Have you been sworn in the last time?
Yeah, I was sworn in last time. We have one more person we need to swear in this time, Rich Capola.
Okay.
So Diana will do that.
Any of the applicants? They were all sworn in?
Mr. Patel says that Mr. Boykin is going to speak for him tonight, and Mr. Boykin was sworn in last time. So
okay.
I think we're all set.
All right, very good.
Coppola, do you solemnly affirm that the testimony you are about to give during the public hearing of briefing item 2015-011 Wyndham Garden Inn special use permit request is truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Thank you.
So now we have Mr. Boykin representing the applicant.
Okay. So if you could just state your name and position for the record.
Okay. My name is Duke Boykin. I'm a commercial appraiser from Raleigh. My firm is Shaw Boykin.
Okay. Are you speaking as an expert witness on?
Yes, I was hired to do an impact study of the proposed Wyndham Garden Inn in Morrisville, 84 rooms, 4 stories, located at 120 Sorrel Grove Church Road.
All right. And part of your testimony, will that include your credentials, sir?
I'll include that.
If you could, please.
Okay. I've been in the Wake County area for over 30 years appraising commercial real estate. I own my own firm. Back in 1989, I received the MAI designation, which is a designation that requires a lot of testing, comprehensive exams, demonstration appraisal reports. It takes a minimum of 5 years to achieve that designation. And I've had my firm here in this area for about 15 years, but I've been appraising commercial real estate ever since I graduated from college and moved here.
Okay. If I could ask the town attorney, does that qualify as an expert witness for this
yes, sir,
part of the discussion? Thank you very much. Yes, sir. Please continue.
I was hired to do this impact study to determine if the proposed development or use will not substantially injure the value of adjoining properties. So, in doing the study, I studied the site. The site contains 2.52 acres. About 30% of the site, which is the northern boundary of the site, is undevelopable due to steep topography and alluvial soils. The development is proposed to have one entrance drive from Airport Boulevard and one entrance drive from Sorrel Grove Church Road. And in the immediate area of where this property is located, Airport Boulevard is 5 lanes, asphalt paved, and has concrete curb and gutter. whereas Sorrel Grove Church Road is 2 lanes, asphalt paved, and has concrete curb and gutter also. These 2 entrances and exit drives are considered to be adequate in order to provide the property with good accessibility without creating traffic congestion. All public utilities are available to the property, including electricity, telephone, water, and sewer. And the site plan requires that the developer add a 5-foot wide concrete sidewalk along all road frontage. The proposed hotel is a Wyndham Garden Inn, which is a 4-story hotel that will contain a little over 59,000 square feet. It'll have 84 hotel rooms, 2 meeting rooms containing approximately 800 square feet, and the capacity for 53 people. And then it will also have a small bar and restaurant with a maximum capacity of 75 people. Other amenities will include a small exercise room and an indoor pool that has approximately 300 square feet of water surface area. Parking will consist of underground and surface parking to accommodate 95 vehicles. And I want to scroll up on my study to show an aerial photograph of the site, which is there. Okay. Okay. This property is currently zoned Regional Activity Center by the town of Morrisville. And with the exception of property on the west, properties on the north, south, and east are also zoned Regional Activity Center District. The property on the west is zoned O&I, and in the O&I district, it allows many of the uses that are allowed in the Regional Activity Center District. Here is a portion of a town of Morrisville zoning map that shows the subject property with the red arrow, and it shows the adjoining properties and their zonings. If you're following along in my impact study on page 7, I have a list of the permitted uses that are allowed in the Regional Activity Center District and also the uses that are allowed in the Office and Institutional District. And logically, hotel and motel is a use that's allowed in the Regional Activity Center, but other uses allowed include banquet halls, offices, automobile service stations, restaurants, retail, daycare centers, government services, urgent cares, wellness centers, specialty eating and drinking establishments, and bars. And of all those uses that are allowed in the Regional Activity Center District, the only ones that aren't allowed in the Office Institutional District are automobile service stations and retail. Otherwise, the same uses that are allowed in the Regional Activity Center District are also allowed in the Office and Institutional District. I did a study of all the hotels that are located in the immediate area of this property. And on pages 8, 9, and 10 of the study, it lists the hotels that are located right in that specific area. And then on the next page, following page 10, there's a road map that shows the location of the subject and all these hotels. And these 18 hotels contain 2,095 hotel rooms. I also was able to do a trend study associated with hotel occupancy levels and average daily rates in the Raleigh-Durham Chapel Hill area, in addition to the immediate Research Triangle Park Airport area, which is where the subject property is located. And on page 11 of my report, you can see that the Research Triangle RDU area, in the occupancy columns, the occupancy levels started in 2012 at 63.9%. In 2013, they increased to 65.9%. And in 2014, they increased to 69.6%. This same increasing trend is shown in the average daily rate of these hotels. From 2012, the average daily rate for hotels in the Research Triangle RDU area was $91.06, increasing to $92.12 in 2013, and then a substantial increase in 2014 to $98.20. And this is a 6.6% increase from 2013 to 2014 in the average daily rate. And then again, if you look at the occupancy level from 2013 to 2014, the occupancy level increased by 3.7 percentage points, or 5.42%. So that, to me, indicates a pretty strong hotel market in that specific area. I also studied the hotel market in all of the Raleigh-Durham Chapel Hill area, and that study also shows in the chart on page 11. And it divides the hotels into different hotel types, like luxury hotels, upscale, mid-price, economy, budget, and then hotels that have more than 75 rooms. And the proposed hotel is going to be similar, kind of a combination of the mid-price to upscale hotel. And if you look in the upscale occupancy level for 2014, you can see that of all the different hotel classifications, the upscale hotel had the highest occupancy level of 73.1%. And then if you look over to the right, under the average daily rate under column for year 2014, the same upscale hotel type had an average daily rate of $110.01. So those are very good occupancies and average daily rates. And the study of the hotels in the Research Triangle RDU area, in the 2013 study, there were 53 hotels that were surveyed, but only 51 of the hotels responded. And in 2014, there were 54 hotels included in the survey, and 52 hotels responded. And from the occupied rooms, from 2013 to 2014, the occupied rooms increased by 359. And the average daily rate increased to $98.20, or an increase of 6.6%. Finally, I contacted the Wyndham Hotel Group and talked with them about their proposed development, and they were able to share with me a study that they had prepared on 5 hotels in this immediate area that they felt was their primary competition. And these hotels included 646 rooms, and they were built from 2002 to 2008. At the top of page 12 of my report, this study is broken down. And under occupancy levels or occupancy rate, you can look at from 2009 to 2014, the occupancy levels increased every year. And in 2004, the occupancy level was 75.5% on average. the average daily rate also increased, and by 2014, it was $107.35. So both of those, the occupancy levels and the average daily rates for this group of hotels from 2013 to 2014, the occupancy level increased by 6.5%, or actually 9.42%. And the average daily rate increased by 541%. On that same column, if you look under demand, you can see the demand for rooms each year for this group of hotels. And by 2014, the demand was 177,961 rooms, and that represents days. So, if you do, that's an increase of 15,241 rooms, and if you divide that by 365 days, that gives you 41.76 rooms. The demand increased by 41.76 rooms. If we have the same growth in 2015 that we had in 2014, there will be a demand for 83.51 rooms. And our proposed hotel has 84 rooms, so if you use a 75% occupancy level, there will be 63 rooms occupied, which is less than what I anticipate the growth to be. Through my studies of the proposed development and the adjoining property zonings, as well as the land designations presented in the town of Morrisville land use plans, in addition to the study of the hotel market in the immediate area of the subject property, it's my belief that the proposed development will not substantially injure the value of adjoining properties. It is my belief that the allowed uses that could be constructed on these adjoining parcels, as well as the types of uses that are being promoted by the town of Morrisville land use plan, would be good neighbors to the mutual benefit of each property. In this regard, the proposed hotel on the subject site provides utility of development with other properties in conformity with the town of Morrisville zoning district and land use plan.
Thank you, sir. Any questions for Mr. Boykin?
Can I ask one quick one?
Okay.
As far as the occupancy rates, what is the is there a standard? Is there? I mean, you looked at the hotels in this general vicinity, that 18. But
Right, in this immediate area.
Yeah, is there some kind of standard that this business looks for? Can you speak to that? You're an appraiser.
Well, occupancy levels vary from place to place. I mean, this is a good location, high traffic area, close to the airport, close to the interstate. A lot of business parks, office developments in this area, which are all the things that you would look for when you were choosing a location to build a hotel. There's a lot of restaurants in the area. Hotels are good for restaurants. People that stay there, they're either going to eat at the restaurant, but many hotels don't have restaurants, so they have to go to the nearby restaurants to have, breakfast and dinner. So it's, occupancy levels vary depending on what the economy is like and depending upon supply and demand, how much people are traveling, the activity at the airport. But a 75% occupancy level is a very high occupancy level. It's a very strong market.
I'm trying to give it. Yeah, it needs. I need something to compare it to. A 75 good number. 75. What we shoot for, is that above what the market shoots for? What this industry rather shoots for? If you could.
That would be at the high end of the range of what occupancy levels, what hotels typically have in occupancy levels. That would be a very strong occupancy level.
And as our staff has not seen this yet, I guess we're all seeing it for the first time tonight?
I have had a chance to review it.
You have, okay, thanks.
And Ben, this was they're addressing the one finding that was lacking with the P&Z review of this?
That is correct.
Okay.
Finding number 2.
Okay, all right. Any other questions for Mr. Boykin? No? Okay. This public hearing will continue till April 14th. Thank you very much, sir, for being here tonight and presenting this information. Ben, was there anything else that you wanted to add? No? Okay. Frank, anything else we need to cover tonight?
No, I didn't know whether the applicant had anything else, or this is the submission tonight.
Was there anything else, sir, Mr. Boykin?
No, unless you have more questions.
Okay.
I'm not anticipating there should be. I was just making sure they were
I think
asked. Yeah.
it sounds like we're okay. Thank you very much again.
So much.
Okay. All right. And like I said, this will we'll have one more public hearing on the 14th of April, the last one. Any council deliberation talk about this right now? Okay. We'll when we have a full council next time, we'll bring it back up. All right. Next section 10, action items. We have 2 action items. No, it's continued, right? So the public hearing is continued until the 14th. 2 action items, 2015-025, approve resolution accepting Carrington Mill Boulevard. Rich?
Yeah, based on council's comments at the last meeting, I did go back and speak with the applicant. Their feeling is much the same as I mentioned last time. As currently written, the town does have the ability to extend the warranty period after 1 year if there is a reason for it. So their wish is to go ahead and get the street accepted, and if in a year from now it is still acceptable, then we would release them from any further warranty requirements, or as it's written in the resolution, the town engineer does have the discretion of extending that at that time if necessary.
Okay, so normally it would be a year, but with what we're anticipating some heavy traffic there, that if your group finds that it's needing to be extended, you can do that. You have the ability to do that.
We do have the ability to do that. I do want to just make sure I clarify that the additional traffic is not the only thing in our current status or in our current acceptances. Once the road is of a status that we can accept it as full maintenance, we do that. So they would only be warranting any defect or anything related to construction. So normal wear and tear or anything like that would not be covered after that 1 year.
Okay. So, all right. Any questions for Rich? Yes, Vicki.
I just have one question about the 1 year warranty period. Do we have any sort of retainer or amount of funds in lieu so that in case there is an issue that can be held?
Like a bond or something?
Yes, we do keep 10% of the overall construction cost of the project in our accounts until such time that at the 1 year period, our staff will go through and do a walkthrough, provide an additional punch list. Once those improvements are made and we feel that it's 100% acceptable, then we will release that back to them. But we do maintain 10% of the construction cost.
Thank you.
Okay. Any further questions for Rich? Okay, this goes to vote tonight, so I need a motion to approve.
I'll make a motion to approve resolution 2015-025.
Second.
Motion and second. Any other discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? That carries 5-0. Next action item is 2015-024, approve resolution to update CIP policy. Jeannie, you have an update for us?
Yes. Good evening, Mayor and Council members. I have just a minor update. At the last meeting, you had requested maybe some additional language to one of the items for the project evaluation criteria, just to encompass consideration in staff scoring of the project's merits for consideration of leveraging other dollars, grants, and partnerships. So in looking back at the project evaluation criteria, the tool itself, number 8 was the best fit, availability of funding, and looking back at how we came up with that, we were really trying to get to saying consideration of leveraging other dollars. So I just retooled that if you can move that down just a little bit to show that. So I just retooled that and provided you with some suggested language. It just makes it a little more specific, and I tested it with a few of the existing projects so that it doesn't harm the scoring. So it's still, in a couple of them, it's still really scoring out in the same manner.
Okay. Thank you for adding that. I think that covers at least what I was thinking about. Anyone else on that?
If we could scroll up just a little more, there is a 5.
There's a 5, yes.
Yes. Thank you.
Okay. Good deal. Thank you for doing that.
You're welcome.
Any questions for Jeannie or other clarifications before we vote on this? No?
I just had one minor question.
Sure.
It's not really pertaining to this language. It was just based on the last CIP work session we had. We had asked you about possibly giving us options for the veteran memorials. I just want to know, is that something we're going to see in the next couple of weeks, months?
Yeah, we're continuing to work on a number of things that you asked us for related to the CIP to come back in another meeting.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Sorry.
No problem. Okay, need a motion and a second?
I move that we adopt Resolution 2015-024 with the revised language on the availability of funding criteria.
Second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That carries 5-0. Thank you very much. Next on the consent agenda, we have 2 items. Did anyone want to remove anything from the consent agenda before we get into this? Okay. So the 2 items, real quick, 2015-030, approved resolution accepting Wake County tax reports. And also 009, approve ordinance to voluntarily annex Wake Tech property between Whiteman Road and Paramount Parkway. I don't think there are any updates on those items, correct? Okay, so I need a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Motion to approve the consent agenda containing items 2015-030 and 2015-009.
I'll second.
Motion and second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That carries 5-0. Thank you very much. Work session, couple topics we want to get into. Morrisville Aquatic Center is the first one. Who will be presenting that? Okay. Matt. And then we'll talk about solid waste after that. If need be, I know the Morrisville Aquatic Center we're missing 2 members tonight, and I'm sure that they'd want to be a part of the discussion. So I anticipate this one, with the significance of it, that we'll probably see another work session in the near future on it. So
sure.
Take it away. Thank you very much.
Thank you all very much. As I just want to recap the process at this point, just to kind of make sure we're all thinking in the same way. The department was directed to put together a feasibility study and to look at a couple of different options. One was the renovation of the aquatic center, as was advertised with the bond issue in 2012. As follow-up to that, we also looked at some other options in terms of if a comprehensive facility was examined that met a lot of the needs that were identified either in the needs assessment by staff or by members of council earlier this year. So tonight, what I wanted to do, I wanted to introduce a couple of gentlemen from Clark Patterson Lee, the people who've been doing our feasibility study. They'll be going through a lot of the findings. I want to make sure that everybody get the report I sent on Friday.
Yeah.
Okay, good. So if you did not, I can certainly make sure I get another copy to you. But I did want to make sure that this is Jeff Shearer and Bob Swickle that are going to be going through the findings of the report tonight. If there are any specific questions that you may have for the department, I will do what I can to answer those. But for the most part, I will turn it over to them and let them discuss what they put in the report.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
Nice to be here. Again, I'm Jeff. This is Bob. We're with Clark Patterson Lee. We've been working on the feasibility study for several months now. Got to work with you earlier on a work session, trying to get some input on what the vision was for this facility. We've also met with again Matt, Jerry, and all of the staff there. Along with several meetings, including with the seniors. We met over there, and that was a nice meeting that we had there. And so, like Matt said, I'll go through the slides here, give you an update. feel free to ask any questions along the way.
Thank you.
Like Matt said, one of the first things that we were tasked to do was to evaluate the existing facility. And so what we did, we have all in-house engineers. We also have an aquatics designer, Tammy Ellis, who joined us on this part of the project. And I'm going to let Bob just talk about briefly the site visit that we had out there and some of the conclusions that he saw.
Sure. So we spent a day with our engineers.
You can step up there. That way it's going to be recorded better. Thank you.
So we spent the day with our engineers touring the property with staff, looking at some of the major systems, mechanical, electrical, plumbing systems, envelope issues, the roof of the building, things of that nature. As Jeff mentioned, we had an aquatics consultant with us as well to look at the pool and how it's set up and the tent structure, et cetera. So our findings were, essentially the bones of the building are very sound. It's a structurally sound building. There's some deferred maintenance issues that need to be tended to, namely the roof. There's some minor electrical issues with the fire alarm systems and the way panels are set up, things of that nature, but nothing catastrophic or major failures or things of that nature. Basically just deferred maintenance issues. Mechanical systems, for the most part, are fairly rooftop units that are fairly new and still have some life left in them. That's really about it. Like I said, the bones of the building are strong and solid, so if the decision is to expand in place, renovate what's there, then that's certainly a possibility, and that's one of the options we'll share with you.
And I know reading the report is you guys were incredibly thorough down to, doors and switches and everything in between. So I encourage the council, if you haven't done so already, read the report front to back. I think you're being generous about the facility. I think Jerry wants me to call it well-loved, not in disrepair, but it's a very well-loved building, probably set up for a much smaller audience than it's currently, currently has it. So are we going to turn it back to Matt then to talk about the future here?
No, I was
going to. Or you were going to. Okay, go ahead. I'm sorry. I don't mean to.
Yeah, I'll just keep going.
Okay, go ahead.
And like Bob said, some of the other things are just finishes in the building. Some of these things are dated, and we call it character. So it's maybe different terms and so forth. But generally, we do quite a bit of projects on a renovation basis, and this is not unusual for what we saw. So. Again, like Bob said, I think the bones are there if that was, the final decision to renovate. What we've also done, again, is through meeting with, the various people throughout our process here, we've established various programs for the different options that Matt had described. The first is shown is what we're working with as far as the existing building. And so what we did is we took existing drawings. Now the original, have been modified slightly, so we modified that into the program and also have all the digital drawings modified accordingly. So what we were trying to do there is really establish not necessarily the extent of character like we just talked about, but really how does the building work? And so what we were able to determine was that there's quite a bit of circulation in the building, much more than what we would typically design into a new structure. And so what we found is that the efficiency was, as you see here, almost 38%, which was for circulation and things for restrooms and facilities like that. And what we would typically see is less than that. And so, even if you do renovate, one of our concerns is that you're really not getting a true net usable space out of that structure. You have a lot of wasted space is basically what we were trying to calculate and figure that out. So that's on the left side, just to show that as a percentage of efficiency. On the right side, what we did is we tried to show the program areas that were defined several years ago through, I guess, all your bonds that were approved. And so what we showed were the renovated areas that had been discussed at that time, along with the new aquatics piece, which was suggested at that time as well. So what we showed there was adding approximately about 21,000 square feet adding 17,000 for the aquatics, but renovating about 3,000 internally of the existing building for a total of about 21,000 square feet of new renovated areas. Everything else, as you see later on in the estimate, for deferred maintenance and things like that was not budgeted at this time. So that is an issue. That's something that has to be accounted for.
Can I ask you a quick question about circulation? You're talking about movement of people through the building as a,
right.
Is it okay? So
what happens is in any building, let's say it's any typical building, you'll have about 10% of that building just in walls. That's just physical structure. That's part of the gross square footage, so to speak. You'll have another 10% for just circulation, hallways, things of that nature, and then anything above that for restrooms. So it's for really the kind of the services to support. It's all the support spaces, and so typically, you're looking for around 25. Maybe 27%, and when you're pushing almost 38% in a building, you're really, I'll say, upside down in a sense. And the only way to right yourself up is you have to go in and, for example, in the existing structure, you have a 2-story volume, you have a monumental stair. I mean, it looks fine, but what you really need to do is put a floor in there.
Yeah, right.
To get net usable space, and then all of a sudden, you might have an aerobics room, or you might have another space that's necessary for activities.
Okay, all right,
okay?
Thank you.
And so the graphic on the right, though, does not take that into account.
No, the graphic on the right only shows the areas that we're going to propose to renovate or add. Now, if you put these two together, let's say you, at the end of the day, you selected that option. What you really have is a building that has about 27,000 square feet. Because again, we're starting at about 10,000. We're literally adding around 17,000 for the aquatics portion. So you'd end up with about 27,000 square foot structure.
That one quick question.
Yes, sir.
Is the renovation study look at the tennis courts, the space there as part of that? Or?
Well, what we did, and when we get to site plan, I'll show you that, the parking becomes a real issue in this equation because locating the aquatics, adding the square footages, and looking at the use in that for zoning. There are some prescribed calculations that were necessary for parking requirements. So you'll see the tennis courts actually disappearing. They would be removed in these options, and parking would be put in their place. Now, and that's in the renovated piece.
You're telling that to the wrong person.
I'm sorry. I know you stressed the tennis and everything.
Well, I think that we can get it. I think people do come there to play tennis, though, and I think they like coming into a facility, being able to work out and do other things. So I appreciate that. You're the consultant, but I've got some more ideas on how.
Now, I'll say this: on that particular site, as I recall, and we'll get into the site plan, I think you can have about 65% build out from the overall site. What we've tried to do is retain some green space up front along the road for the most part in both options. Whether that could be reconfigured for parking and save tennis courts, that may be a possibility. The other, this is the next page, what we looked at were, again, the recommendations for the council, the staff, the seniors, and community needs assessment. And basically, we went through all of the suggestions. We proofed all of the sizes and uses with the staff to make sure that they were appropriate for what needed to happen in those spaces. And what you'll see is that there's quite a few needs that were discussed. Now, we did not at this point look at phasing in any way. That is certainly an option, at some point in time that could be considered. But what we did is we tried to go through that list and make spaces appropriate to what the suggestions were at that time. On the right side is an expanded square footage, which gives you a little bit more space for things such as a little bit larger lobby, a cafe potentially in that lobby space that we discussed here a while back. We also added some components for the youth in that particular option. I think under the youth kid zone, third note down, there's about 1,000 square feet for kind of an indoor type of a activity area just for youth dedicated. The other thing is in both options we did include a seniors type space for a suite, which could include a lounge and some other options in there. And then lastly, under adult activity on the right side, there were some components that we felt could be potentially outsourced for, let's say, massage therapy, things of that nature, which may be more of a healthcare related component that we could see maybe there's some potential there for some partnering, throughout the community. So on the left side, we were around 65,000 square feet total. On the right side, almost 70,000 square feet. So this is kind of almost 2 times what we would have, as far as a new building, for example, compared to what we had just looked at from a renovated.
One of the things we had talked about with the consultants was the senior programming space. I know there's been a lot of talk over the years of the senior center or addressing some dedicated space for senior activities. So one of the things that we had looked at with this facility is could we set aside some space, as a substitute for potentially building a whole separate facility for something like that, creating some dedicated space within an existing community center. And so that was what was being represented here. After Jeff and Don were able to speak with council, they went down and met with a pretty large number of senior participants. We had a really good turnout who came in, and that's where a lot of the elements that are included came from. They gave a lot of input and seemed very positive about that kind of a concept of really trying to make sure that we were being very aware and very intentional with some space for them as part of the overall scheme here. The other thing I wanted to point out as you're looking at these comparative models, the one on the left, when we were first comparing notes between the needs assessment and the staff input and the council's input, a lot of them really were very, very close. Very, very close. There were very few overlaps that one mentioned and the other one did not. Really, the big difference here is just the specificity of it. As we got into it, where staff was saying, well, we know we need X amount of space for a gymnasium. We know we need X amount of space for cardio area, the X amount for weight rooms and things like that. But the actual items that are listed were very, very similar to the same list that council provided that night. And with the needs assessment. So we were very glad to see that everyone was kind of on the same page going with that. I will say, too, with the option on the left, when we had met with the consultants, one of the things we looked at was finding a facility model that would fit kind of maximizing the space where the current facility is, as was discussed, and all that, what would the cost difference be if we remove that exact same size somewhere else? So you would all be able to see what the difference kind of apples to apples would be. Whereas on the right side, that was really including those things that wouldn't all fit on the existing site. That's really the difference in those two. That's why that's why I got capped at the 65,000 square feet, because that really is critical mass for that site. We can't, stay within the UDO requirements. That's really as big as the facility can get and be able to capture as much as we could. So that's where those numbers, those amounts came from. I just wanted to make sure that I had touched on that as we went.
So if I could repeat what you said, the building as it stands right now is about 9,900 square feet. Mm-hmm. If we go with the renovation program, that would add, and this includes the pool, an additional 20,600 square feet. That's an addition?
The addition is the aquatics, which was 17,000. There's about 3,000 square feet that's just renovated in existing
Right,
space.
but that would add, it would be a total of 29 or 30,000?
It'd be a total of around 27,000.
27?
Yes.
Okay. All right, and then the one on this next page could still fit on that site?
Yes, sir.
The 65,000 square foot facility, and then if we, or it could be somewhere else.
Right. We wanted to be able to show maximizing the current site. This is
Right.
what you could get square footage wise.
Gotcha.
And then what the difference would be in terms of the cost, putting it in a different location. Just so
Okay.
you can see some things would be different along that line.
All right, so the all-in model with the 69 or almost 70,000 square feet would probably would have to be
It would have to be an
different location. Okay, all right.
Now the existing site, we just went 2 floors. I mean, you can keep going, you can keep going vertical, but we started running out of, our 65% threshold for parking and building. That's where we ran out.
Okay, all right.
To what extent is, just one question, to what extent is like energy efficiency looked at with, like, for example, the first scenario, the renovation? I mean, are there things that could be done with solar, like more lighting coming in? I remember in the past we talked about that's not the most energy efficient building. I went through the briefings and stuff.
I'll touch on that when we get to the site plan.
Okay, sorry.
1 second, but I will touch on that. This is the site plan that we generated for that option that you were just asking about. What we were looking at again is the light gray is the existing building. That's that large rectangular block. The smaller is the existing pool. Originally, I think when the bond was discussed, there was a thought of putting the new pool right where the existing pool is located. So we're really taking one out and putting one back. What we were suggesting here is to actually locate the new addition towards the road, which would become more of an impact, I think, as far as people driving by, possibly, really kind of advertise, that facility from that standpoint. But what we were also trying to do was eventually you'll see a dashed line that kind of says for future, which wraps around the entire building. The thought from an energy standpoint was we were going to wrap that building. So eventually, rather than have to clean up the exterior, do these things that really are more, like Bob said, deferred maintenance, what we would do is basically wrapping and by default insulating that whole building from an energy standpoint. Now on top of the roof, certainly we could put solar panels and things like that. We've done one of those. At least we did the initial study down in our Wilmington for that facility. We were working with the electric co-op down there, and we were looking at about a $300,000 fee just for that, the rooftop solar panels themselves. But, all of that is certainly feasible. Now, that's not included in what we have, at this moment, but could be done in the future, yes. Like I said, this option eliminates, quite a bit of the exterior, tennis. There's some back, some courts in the back. But what this does do is it does keep the existing pool for potentially an outdoor type pool for camps and things of that nature, and separates, the indoor and the outdoor. Both could be served by the new lockers that are shown there on the left side. And it also, what it does, it relocates the entrance to the facility as far as the entrance drive, which I think would really work better in the sense of you're getting it off of the corner for sight lines and things of that nature. Any questions on that option?
And there's enough parking to accommodate that building and all the
Yes.
activity?
Yes, per that zoning, and that if you go down to on the right side, it has zoning requirements for that particular site in town. It was requiring 1 space per 300 square feet. So when you do your calculations, we ended up with around 215 spaces for that site. But what happens is, we do have the hatched area is the green space out front. Again, that's dedicated. The square footage is you're in a chicken and egg thing. You know, you build square footage, you need space for parking. And so there becomes a kind of a balancing act between the two. And this seemed like a fairly, you know, good model, you know, at least for the moment. And you'll see in the costs, you know, we've tried to include everything new and those renovated areas that were indicated in the program as well.
Okay, so this picture is before us is sort of, we'll call it option one, the renovation. It includes the existing building, the existing pool, but new lockers, a pool up front and an outdoor space, and reconfiguration of the parking.
That's what we have, yes, sir.
And if there's an additional element would be if we wanted to have a two-story addition, which would add approximately 12,500 feet. And that would be in that envelope that you have the dotted lines around the existing pool and building?
Right. No, we did not put that in the cost. You'll see that.
Right, okay.
That would be future, but yes,
Gotcha.
you should do that.
Okay, all right.
One of the other things included in this is some minor renovation to the existing interior, where the group fitness space is upstairs, and where the current locker rooms are downstairs, tearing out some walls and repurposing some of that space to expand some. And that was, I think, what Jeff was referring to earlier, with there's the additional 3,000 square foot of renovation. Okay. That would be upstairs and downstairs above the existing locker room space.
Okay. So that's taking some of those dead spaces that they're already built. Yeah. It's just enclosing some of the funny things in that building and making usable space.
Right. So that way you're not having to leak out, you know, onto like balconies for activities. Yes, sir.
Gotcha. Okay. All right.
Under this scenario, you talked about the tennis courts not being an option because of the parking, but would there be options? You said there was something about reconfiguring the parking, stuff like that, or is that another?
If we reconfigured the parking and put it up in that hatched area, which is the green space, you know, we would have to work, you know, through zoning to make sure that we still fit within that 65% threshold. But we do have that hashed area, which is theoretically that, and along all the setbacks equals 35% of the acreage on that site.
Could you have the tennis in the hatched area up front?
Well, again, we could reconfigure the lower right side of the parking to maintain tennis, you know, in that area. If we really did, if we wanted to keep tennis there, what I would try to do, the parking that is behind the existing pool, I would tend to avoid that because it's dead end, and simply we could relocate the tennis courts to behind the existing pool area.
Gotcha. Okay.
I have a question about the reconfiguration as it relates to the senior center. Is that in the existing proposed diagram here?
The seniors are not in this plan, no.
So that would be in the future two-story building?
That's
scenario?
correct.
Yeah, there are a couple of things that are not in this one. I mean, the kids zone that you talk about.
Well, this is 27,000 square feet compared to 65,000 square feet, so there's quite a bit. There's 50% not in this one. Yes.
One of the things with this particular program they put together, we wanted to be able to show council more explicit what was spoken to with the bond advertisement that we did in 2012. These are the areas that were discussed, and so we wanted to be able to say if we were staying just to what we discussed with the public during the bond issue, that this is kind of that how that comes out. We didn't talk about any of the future areas in that because it wasn't discussed then. It was more of trying to meet some of the immediate needs of the existing facility.
And again, that it's $2.5 million was what was set aside for the bond for this renovation. Is that
the whole bond, Jerry, correct me if I'm wrong, was $5.3 million, I believe. I think we talked about I don't remember exactly. It was 4 something for the building.
The entire bond issue was $5.2 million.
Okay, I'm sorry.
The original estimated cost of this renovation was going to be around 4 to 4.5, 4 to 4.4, and the remainder was going to be used at Morrisville Community Park.
Okay, so out of the 5, so if you could repeat how much from the bond is available for the renovation.
The bond issue was $5.2 million. The entire $5.2, the way the bond was worded, could be used for the project. The original intent was about $4 million for the project, and the other $1 million to $1.2 million for Morrisville Community Park was the original expectation.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
And I think I'd like to just sort of make sure we're clear too. As I understand it, this is only the renovation of the pool. It does not renovate the entire facility. So I think that needs to be really clear. Is that accurate? So you would have a mix of newly renovated areas and old stuff. Just contextual information.
And as they get to their cost estimate, they'll speak to some of that too, of what was included in this particular one. But to follow up on the manager's statement, yes, sir, that was true. This was really looking at these new pieces and these new pieces also.
And just for an interest of time, my colleagues that are not here, we will continue this discussion. So if there's other things that come up, I know that we want to run through 2 other scenarios if we could, and then we'll get into some cost stuff.
Right. Mayor, can I ask one quick question?
Sure.
Because I'm trying to compare this proposal or idea with the very first set of chart comparisons, and the one on the right was entitled Renovation Program. Is this site plan that chart?
Yes, the gray is that new area, the 17.4, and then inside that existing large gray box, there's about 3,000 renovated.
Okay, thank you.
This option is basically to build new on the existing site, existing aquatic site, and then tear down the existing building. So this is just an option to put a new building on that site and to see, again, how large a facility we could get and stay within the thresholds of the zoning. This is where the 65,000 square foot option came in. As part of that, there are areas for seniors, there's a gymnasium, there's the aquatics. There's quite a few other areas for the teens and things of that nature, and those are kind of in a diagram up at the top right-hand corner, which are it's more of a bubble diagram showing proximities to one another. Again, the location of the building is somewhat dictated by the existing building on the site, because what we were trying to do is keep you in operation while you actually build a new building and then you tear down. So there's a phasing portion of this. The cost to do this is a little bit more, because mainly the time to do it takes a little bit longer because of that phasing nature. We also tried to maintain as much possible some existing parking areas, but there is some that were added at the top of the page. Because parking is in front of the building, there was a discussion of adding a screen wall to help screen some of that parking itself, and we did relocate the existing drive.
One question to Matt Lever was for years you've been saying that a larger facility would enable us to run more track-out programs and things like that. So this would be under this scenario. Right?
Yeah, and this would some of the elements that are listed here, the gymnasium, the additional programming spaces, would really be the catalyst for us to be able to do those things.
All right, and then we have the third option, or the last option, which would have to be off-site.
Right, and the next option is on the site here near the core, so to speak. And what we did is work with with everyone to basically identify a footprint that would fit within that particular piece of property. And what you see is a building that's basically toward the middle of the site. It really almost has 4 different fronts to it in effect. And what we've tried to do is locate the parking in a manner that starts to connect existing drives, existing roads, and things like that through the site. We've tried to put more parking on street, and also leave property for the park and potentially a library in the back of the site. So what this plan shows is the 65,000 square foot footprint. If I go one more, very similar. You'll see kind of the back half of the building, which is towards the bulk of the parking, expands slightly, and that's around the 70,000 square feet. So either one of those options fit in that particular location. and could certainly be phased accordingly for budget purposes. Now, the parking in the core is a little bit different than the other site. This one is one space for 600 square feet, so it's a little bit more lenient in the parking, mainly because you have street parking that's available, and also I think there's a tendency for people in the townhomes and residences nearby to be within walking distance, to that facility.
During the discussion of these particular models, we talked with Brad and Ben some. So some of the considerations that planning was looking for in this part of the town center plan, or the core as we're calling it, there's certain things that we weren't able to completely consider, like on-street parking, not knowing exactly how that will end up, but some of those things. But that's why the parking, even with the relaxed standard, may not meet all the facility need. There is the assumption of on-street parking. There was no way to really account for it in this particular model.
This, of course, is just conceptual in that we're talking about an existing 10 acres that we own today. It's not to say that there aren't other options with,
absolutely,
selling that land and buying the 10 acres next to it and doing the same thing. And
basically, what we wanted to be able to present was on the existing site what we own, and just really stay town-owned property for the moment.
I think it's good because it gives us an idea if you were to flip it on the other side of Town Square Drive, whatever that road will be called one day. I guess it's Carolina now, right? If you can get a better sense on what fits on that property with
economy of scale, so you get an idea of in relationship to anything else about how much size we're talking about.
And I guess the other element we haven't really talked about much is if this did happen, we'd have a situation with the existing property that might be able to be used as an asset to help with the cost of moving and whatever.
We did have the appraisal done, and so it was a few months ago. We did have it appraised, so we had a general idea at the time. Certainly, as council decides to move forward, we could have that updated to see if any changes to it.
The other factor to consider is that if we did do a renovation, that the facility would be closed for an extended period of time. There's a lot of people that use that facility. Whenever that is.
Right. We try to keep people in operation as much as possible, but like Bob said, there are panels scattered throughout the building. What we would typically do is try to clean those situations up, build new, and then offset, let's say, restrooms new with renovated spaces. So we try to. So it's a big juggling situation, but it's a construction site. It is not pretty a lot of the time, and in some cases there may be some reduced level of use temporarily. Hopefully that would come back once everything was all said and done.
But in all fairness, it's really not that pretty now.
Hey, it's well loved. Okay, so.
Well loved.
Yeah.
Just for the council, one of the reasons why I think we should consider tennis as part of the renovation is if, like there's the USTA, if our tennis courts were wheelchair accessible, we could get grant money to build a resurface of those courts. So I just think it's something we should consider, as we look at this plan, whether it's feasible and that's one reason.
Well, I think maybe, I know you're going to give us some sobering news here in a minute with some budgets and stuff, and maybe we'll, after we hear that, we'll answer any questions, but I want to really get the other two members involved in this. So when it talks, I think there's all sorts of things that people are thinking of right now, but we have time to include the others. And so if you want to go through some of the what I call sobering news here. I'm sorry, after the pool, let's have more fun, and then we'll.
Well, like I said, Tammy is our aquatics designer, and what we were trying to do is there was a configuration that was shown, some time ago, and this was updated based on some current concepts with the aquatic staff. For on the left, you see more of a kind of a zero entry, smaller children, kid zone. With features literally in the water. You have slide features. You also have a kind of in the middle between the zero entry and the lanes. You have an area that is really perfect for teaching kids how to swim. Before, if you compare the two, the throat between the two was very narrow, and it didn't allow for a lot of the teaching of smaller children and so forth. So she reconfigured this, and this is how we came up with that, with that 17,000 square feet. We actually, because she did this, we were able to tighten it up by about 1,000 square feet. So it actually helped us, from a budget standpoint at the end of the day.
Well, I know the swimmers would love this. So.
And one of the things we did do when we were talking about is trying to only stick to the lane usage that we felt like was going to be realistic versus to go on 20 lanes wide or anything like that.
Right.
Really is based on kind of the current use and new use that we would pick up with any new facility or any new pool. As something new comes online, it generates some excitement, so we'd see some new users that way. So really there was, we did try to stay realistic with the amount of lanes that we're considering. And I think the other features really help offset that it's not just the lanes or nothing. It really does allow for those other uses as well.
Now for the sobering news. Here we go. All right. The first estimate on the left, and let me preface this. We're right now we're working over in Garner. And we're doing a large rec center over there. We're actually in design development. And in that particular case, we are doing budgets on a quantity takeoff basis. So we're actually taking off every brick, every stud, every piece of drywall, and so forth. So we have a really good basis of cost over in Garner. Now, what we've done in this feasibility study is really work on a cost per square foot. So it's not quite as detailed, but we have this as reference, and so we're comparing these two, which are very current costs. The other thing that we've done is reached out to some contractors who have recently bid some work. And what we have found is that there is somewhat of a spike that has happened fairly recently from an escalation standpoint. And what happens is, when the economy took a turn downward, construction costs were held low. They were really held low for probably 4 or 5 years, and they have started to turn an upward pattern, and so some of that is what you see here happening. What we've tried to do is really look at an overall cost, including contingencies, escalations, and from the standpoint of cost per square foot, take really an above average level of quality for these facilities. So you could cut these back slightly and still meet the needs, I think. But right now it is somewhat of a little bit of a conservative number, just to help everyone take a look and protect that overall number. So again, on the first cost on the left, this is really the items that were discussed, I guess, in the bond several years ago. What we have some zeros in there. You'll see, lobby, support, finish upgrades in existing, and that goes to what we were just talking about. There are certain things that we are renovating and certain things we aren't. So you have two levels of quality in this particular scheme. But what you do see in here is a new addition for a pool, which is that 17,400 square feet, and it is at $225 a square foot for almost $4 million. So the pool addition itself, which includes that lockers and the showers, everything in that dark gray thing that was basically coming around the left side, is about $4 million. Now, that does not include the pool itself. The pool itself is another $1 million, and that's based on data from Tammy on projects that she's doing basically from South Carolina all the way up to Tennessee currently. So she has a good feel, for that cost for that pool that we just looked at. In addition, we have some renovation numbers in there for certain areas in the building. You start expanding these numbers. You have design. Again, you have some escalation. You have site costs for added parking and demolition, things of that nature. And then eventually you total up the testing, and you have a total project cost of about $6.6 million. Now, that compares to, I think, what Jerry was saying is around $4.2 million, maybe in the initial budget. So you'll see, from the initial to today, it has gone up, and what we've tried to do again is take into account all of the factors that we're aware of at this moment from the economy itself and recent quantity takeoffs.
The other thing I just want to point out the notes underneath, as Jeff said about the interior finishes, but also I'm going back to what the manager said earlier, it'll be 2 different exterior as well. The new will have one type of exterior, and then the existing parts of the building would still have the existing one. Without knowing anything differently at this point, we stayed with what was and what would be new. So obviously, if there is, as he said, wrapping the building, doing some other things, those are not included in this, only because that was already outside of the scope of what we were originally pursuing, which was just the renovation.
Okay, on the right side, that is the basically the tear down, of the existing building on the existing site. Again, it's around the 65,000 square feet, and you'll see all of these areas are new. And so you have costs for all of these different areas within the building. They're at different rates, basically based on historical data for building out certain areas. For example, if you go down the list, there are certain numbers that really just kind of pull right over for the pool and the pool building itself. But you'll start to see in there where we have a gym and a track area. The gym itself. The footprint that was shown, in that diagram was around 11,000 square feet, and the track, we would have a walking track, within that space, which is about 3,000 square feet in area. But you'll see the cost is about half of what it would typically cost, for an actual building itself. It's literally the structure and just the mezzanine type track that's supported above. So we've tried to use adjustments throughout for each area. Again, we have all of the costs below indicated. Some of these things, as the cost of the project goes up, certain things go down. Typically, design costs go down. There's typically some site costs that ratchet down. So there are things like that some things go up, some things go down. But at the end of the day, this is $16 million.
No problem.
Okay. All right. Now, the next cost is to put the 65,000 square foot building on the core site. That was the first diagram that I showed you on that site. It's virtually $16 million. There's other site costs involved and so forth. There's but a new building on the existing site versus a new building on the core site. It's going to basically be the same. The only difference would be there's some demo costs, for the existing building, but that could be offset by additional site costs, on the core site. So some things, again, it's a balancing act between the two sites, but virtually it's still about $16 million. The last one that we have was roughly the 70,000 square foot option. And as you can tell, all the numbers, when they total out, they're sitting at about $17 million. And so, the added 5,000 square feet, added 5,000 square feet is at a cost of about $1 million, or about $200 a square foot. And all of that's relative to the spaces that were added for cafes and things like that. Things of that nature tend to be a little bit higher because you have kitchen equipment, plumbing, and so forth.
And neither of these include land price.
That's correct.
Assuming we already own property.
That's correct. That's correct. Also, on these two options, like Matt has said, on the right side of that diagram there was a road extension that was indicated, and that was not included in this cost as well because there were so many unknown factors with that at this time.
You talk about the access to Town Hall Drive?
Correct.
Right. Okay.
And the areas are widening and on-street parking and things like that.
Okay. And it doesn't talk about if we surplus the existing property, then
Right.
so.
Right. Now, all of these, these, what we did is we took the program, we expanded it on the site, and we put our numbers and factors on it. All of these things, like I said earlier, could be phased in a manner, but it's completely, up to your liking.
And is your firm going to be available at our next meeting? Because I think we'd like to be able to study this and come back with our other members and be able to, really dig into some stuff. So
Yeah, that'd be fine. Anytime, anytime that we can, you need us, we'll
Maybe
be here.
just pencil it on your calendar. That's April 14th, I believe.
Okay.
Could we ask some?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. I'm not trying to cut them off. I'm just trying to sign them up for the next meeting. So.
I appreciate the
Yeah.
extension.
Sure, sure.
I have a question about the conceptual design where you had the library on the same site. If you could elaborate a little bit, could there be shared parking for the library and the aquatic center?
Oh, absolutely.
That would be a win-win.
Oh,
possible
absolutely.
Cost savings?
Right, because of the timing of things, and usage of buildings, there could be some shared elements, between the two that would help offset costs from one to the other. Yes, and whether the library is in, I'll say the back portion of the site, or whether it even comes onto the front portion of the site, it could possibly do that as well. I mean, that's just a placeholder saying that there is room available for that purpose if desired.
Very good, thank you.
If we can just get the library folks to throw in a pool,
Exactly.
we'll be in business then.
I think Ben's working on that.
Okay, good, thank you.
I was going to say, does the 17 million include the library?
No.
Mayor, one question I
Yeah,
have
go
is
ahead.
as we continue this discussion, go into the next work session, I mean, are we looking at it, making a decision on whether we're going to renovate? And even if we did that, does that rule out the discussion of the town center plan, the recreation center? I mean, that's what I think. I know it's something we're going to have to. I know the cost is going to drive some of that.
I think all the next steps are up for discussion at this point. I don't think I think this is too new to say anything besides let's continue to talk about it.
I mean, as I look at this, I think the citizens voted for an expansion and renovation of the aquatics and fitness center. So I think that should be something that we took a look at first, but also not weigh out other innovative ways, partners, things that we can do to reduce the cost a little bit. I mean, I think there's a lot of options. We got to digest it all, but that's just my thoughts.
I think we have to balance the needs assessment, the bond considerations, and the value of the option that we select. There's different values in each of these options, and we need to make a decision so that we can move forward with the other areas as well. We need to make a decision about town center. We need to make a decision about this MAFC expansion enhancement project so that we can start moving forward.
Chris, do you have any comments or questions at this point? Liz?
Yeah, just one quick one. When you talked before about phasing in, if we chose the renovated program option, we could then over time phase in the whatever the other ones. Now
The second story.
The second, not the full blown. Because clearly that won't fit on the site, but I'm talking about at the current site.
Oh, absolutely.
We could start with the renovated program and then over time phase into the other.
Correct.
With the 65,000 square feet. Okay.
Well, we would end up with.
It's a different number.
Well, that's true. Okay.
Well, I had total building. The total building area on this site plan is around 54,000 square feet. So it's not quite the 65, but it's 54,000, which is still, you'd still have a significant amount of program space that, was discussed.
And then you could add in the senior center would be in there and or whatever.
Yeah, we didn't target anything specific with the future. Only because we did want to prioritize.
But we could. Yeah, we could pick and choose those that,
Right, we just wanted to
youth,
leave
kids
it as-
zone, the whatever.
Right.
Okay. So there's really a lot of options.
Oh, there's numerous options. I mean, you can start taking this program and dissecting it any way you want, and phasing it, based on what you would like to see sooner rather than later.
Right.
Just to clarify that point, I see where you get to 54,000. What's the difference? How do you go from the 39,000 to the 54,000? You have phase one at 27. Phase two adds another 12.5, so that's 39. And what's the additional 13,000 from? Am I reading that right?
What I had, I think what I took, excuse me, I take that back. The total is around 40,000. I think basically on the parking, that I was backing into a size. Again, it's that chicken egg thing. We can build up to 54,000 with that parking that exists.
Okay.
So I apologize.
That's okay. That's okay.
That number was.
But this diagram in the second phase is about 40,000 total. Okay.
Right.
All right. Thank you. All right. Well, I think.
Jerry had a comment.
I'm sorry, Jerry. Go ahead.
I'm good.
You okay? Did you want an office over here, Jerry, or something, and overlooking the? Okay. All right.
I appreciate your help, Jerry.
Yeah.
And I think the other thing to not discount is that there are all kinds of grants out there too, that you've all been very good about bringing in all kinds of money. Now, I realize we also had the conversation about that money's drying up too. So again, it's that chicken and the egg, but there are some other funding opportunities out there to look into as well as we continue this discussion.
So I think maybe next time we'll start looking, we'll throw some of those ideas out and continue the discussion. Is that okay with everyone if we do that? Okay. This has been great. Thank you so much. It's a long time coming. It's great to see progress being made, and really appreciate your approach to this and giving us all the options, good and gooder and better and more expensive. So.
Yeah, thank you for having us.
Can you just find some money for us now?
We just have to work on that a little bit.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you very much. Appreciate that. Okay. Next up is a continuation of our solid waste discussion. I don't know if Martha, you had anything. Or you're just going to let us talk about it some more.
We're here to answer your questions.
Okay. All right. So we haven't talked about this in about a month, but I think the last time we had talked about the different, one thing is just to keep the trash and recycle fee embedded within the property tax. And there was some discussion about that. There was also some discussion about removing it and making it a user fee. I had sent out to the council maybe some staging options that can be considered. I don't know that at this point I have much more to add, except that I would just ask to keep our options open as we go through the budget cycle, to give us flexibility if we decide that we need it. So that's about all I wanted to add tonight. I appreciate everyone's willingness to consider all these things, but the most important thing to do, I think, is just to keep those options open at this point. I got the general sense that we're not moving towards a user fee, which is fine if that's the way it turns out, but just let's kind of see how the budget discussions proceed. Did I capture that okay?
Yeah, I think you did capture that okay. I will say, I thought staff was going to come back with some kind of numbers for us to look at. And is that going to be part of budget then?
Yeah,
or we'll have numbers to look at?
I think that the policy issue and what financial things you might need to discuss as a part of the budget are really separate. They'll have to come together at some point. But one's really a policy issue, and the other is what we're going to need to balance the budget, and we're still putting that together for you.
Thank you.
Okay. And I think, Tony, are we still okay as far as time frame if we do make a decision, or we pass the point of no return on any of these options?
We haven't passed the point of no return.
Okay.
We haven't passed the point of no return. If you are electing to go to a fee, depending on which entity you would like to provide your billing for, we're getting very close.
Gotcha.
And then the options get a little narrower. If you decide to go with the county option, that has to be done on a fiscal year basis. You can't enter it halfway through the year.
Gotcha.
Something like that.
Okay.
If you go with the other municipality, you have greater flexibility as to when you want to start.
Gotcha. Okay.
But if you are considering going to a fee and you want to start it July 1st, I'd say by no later than the second meeting in April, and then probably stretching a little bit there.
Okay.
We would need a head nod one way.
So I think we could. I mean, if you're saying we need to come to a decision by the end of April, I think we can do that. That gives us a couple more times. Are we going to have some budget stuff by then? So we're not going to know anything more then than we do now. That's not good. So,
Yeah.
all right. Well,
But again, if the council does decide to go to a fee, you do have a flexibility option with the municipality.
Right. Okay. So if for some reason we decided we wanted to go with a fee in August, then we can always do that through the other municipality. Okay. All right. So.
Yeah, I just wanted to make one comment. I mean, I think what brought us to this point was the $800,000 shortfall. And we're going to be we're looking at this as an option, how to meet that shortfall. And the fee is just one way of looking at a fee, whether it's even partial cost recovery, is that dollars out of the general fund that we pay right now for solid waste could be used for other services. And I think I just want to clarify that's sort of why we're looking at a fee. And I think that.
Well, I guess I would argue that that's an element of many. I mean, I think there's still some value in a tax rate of a certain number versus a higher number. So I don't want to tell people we're only discussing it because of the privilege license tax.
But also that we talked about the pay-as-you-throw solution, and that's something that we're still evaluating that at the committee level, correct? I mean, even if we were to come up with a fee, we're not going to be able to do something like that, but I still want us to examine that kind of
That will be discussed by our MERC committee, but it would not be part of this process.
Okay.
And it's really separate, so it's as is the contract discussion.
Correct.
So, okay. All right. Well, let's go ahead.
Tony, can I ask you about the contract? When are you going to put that out to bid, and when will we get the answer back?
It's out to bid, or we'll soon
You
be.
did put it out.
Friday. It's going out Friday.
Okay. 3 weeks. Okay.
And we have a myriad of options of operational things in there.
Is that 3 weeks? 3 weeks. Canadian weeks.
You got to count.
Yeah. All right.
The Canadian thing.
If I could just kind of summarize, I think we're not in agreement what problem we're trying to solve. I think we're each trying to solve a problem, and the problem we have in mind, we're trying to provide that solution, and that's why we're having such robust discussion. We have a shortfall. We have a policy about how we pay for our solid waste disposal for residents. We have some other revenue potential losses coming up. So there's many different considerations of this policy, and there have been other various proposed solutions. So I think as we go forward in the budget process, let's consider what problem we're trying to solve when we discuss that problem, but look at the entire landscape of how that decision will affect our future decisions and our, strength, financial strength, if you will. So.
Okay. And I'm good with making a deadline of the end of April. Give us 2 more meetings at the max to talk about it, and we'll move on after that.
Do we need that time? I mean, if others do, I guess it's better to have our other council members. So, but
we may not need it.
Yeah,
I mean,
I'm not sure I need.
And I'm not forcing more work sessions for the heck of it, but I just, it sounds like I just want to give him a commitment that.
Earlier the better.
Gotcha. Okay. Message received.
So should we plan to have this discussion and some final direction at the next meeting?
We certainly can. Yeah.
Okay, we'll let Robert.
I mean, unless there's some other, I would say we can certainly shoot for that.
I mean, I don't want to miss an opportunity if that's what we decide to do.
Well, it doesn't sound like we're going to have any more budget information. That was really the key, my key decision point. But if that's not a part of this, if it can't be done in time, then I think we're ready to move on. And there is always that availability if we go the municipality billing route to do it anytime we want to, which is so. Okay. Anything else on that? Good, okay. Well, we'll come back to that in a couple weeks and hopefully wrap that up. We have a whole bunch of announcements here, so let me start. Next council meetings, April 14th and then the 28th, that's our briefing and business sessions. We have a Morrisville Cary joint subcommittee meeting on April 30th, and that's going to be held at Cary Town Center, or Town Hall rather. Don't go to Town Center for that. We have a special council meetings, 2 of them. One in May on the 19th, it's a budget work session at 6:30 right here. Then June 4th, also budget work session, 6:30 right here. Easter egg hunt, April 3rd, 9:30 to 12 p.m. over at the community park. Anything more on that? Where did Blake go? Not Blake, I'm sorry, Jerry. He took off. Okay, well, if you want to ask him if he has any more comment on that, I'd give him the opportunity. NCDOT NC54 corridor study meeting will be here April 16th. Public meetings from 4 to 7 and meeting for elected officials only from 1:30 to 3 p.m. Will we be getting more information on what we're going to be doing at that meeting exactly?
Yeah, I've asked Benjamin that myself.
Okay, so maybe before you can email us if you don't know it right now, but if we could get more information on what that means and how we can prepare, I would appreciate it.
And if we would get Wake County officials, or is it just municipal officials?
Well, I don't know. It says meeting for elected officials.
My questions as well. Benjamin's.
I think it's more.
I think it's Cary. It's all the partners in the 54 study. They'll all be invited.
Yeah. We're just making them meet here so they have to drive on 54 a little bit to get here.
Yeah.
Right? So,
Yeah,
but I believe it's all of our partners there. Then, big event on the April 18th is the Morrisville 150th Civil War anniversary event. Benjamin, Ben, rather, we're going to get more information on how to dress, where to show up, what side are we on?
So far, we have not planned for costumes for you, but let us know if you want us to connect you with.
Well, you let us know if that's an important part of the.
We can come in costume if we
can. Okay. Green Day on. Actually, there's a website, battleofmorrisville.org. Who is running that, or who put that together?
So we contracted with Ernest Dollar to put that together. It's got a detailed schedule of the program.
Okay. And is that up and running right now?
That is up and running.
Perfect. Okay, thank you. Make sure that's heavily advertised, Stephanie. Green Day, April 25th from 10 to 2, meeting here at Town Hall. And I'm sorry.
9 to 2.
Is it 9 to 2? Why do I have 10 to 2?
Oh, why does this one say, oh.
Which one is it, 9 to 2 or 10 to 2? It is 10 to 2. Okay.
My briefing sheet is wrong.
Oh, okay.
Or my agenda's wrong.
I'm going to, Jerry, just ask you real quick. You had stepped out, but is there anything you want to add for the Easter egg hunt? Or that's about it for park stuff. Anything you'd like to add for that? No. Okay. Oh, for good, absolutely. Was there also, is the Green Day, the stream clean with the, oh, it's already, okay, that's happened. That was last weekend, right? Okay. Tell how up to date I am. Did anyone go to that? Council members clean the stream?
I do believe our MERC committee and several other folks did.
Okay, all right. Well, thank them all for doing that. Any other announcements? I did have one thing. I think it's going to be a little bit of a conflict with our Civil War thing, but I told Wake Up Wake County I would mention it. They are having an event down in Raleigh on the 18th also from 2 to 5 p.m. You can go to the Wake Up Wake County website to find out more about it, but it looks like a really interesting day of exploring Raleigh, how the city is livable, and it's a tour. The money goes to Wake Up Wake County, but it looks like a very full day of neat stuff if you're into planning and town center discussion, things like that. So unfortunately, I think we're going to be tied up with our own event that day. Any other issues, questions, comments? Okay. Well, thank you all for being here tonight. Need a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Okay. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
It's 9:39. Thank you all.